We have a solution. The Whine No Whine Show, where you can be friended and offended all in the same hour, where we gather people from all different walks of life and perspectives, and we talk about everything that everyone has told you not to. Religion, politics, and everything under the sun. Nothing is off limits, and we do it all over a glass of wine. So grab a glass and join us as we save America, one civil conversation at a time.
3, 2, 1.
Hello, social media. I used to say Facebook all the time, and then I had to come up with something different because now we're like YouTube and Twitter and everywhere.
Everything.
How y'all doing? Welcome to the Whine No Whine Show, the only show where you can be friended and offended all in the same hour.
Yeah,
America.
one or the other. We don't
Right,
know.
take your pick. America, we have a problem. You know what I'm talking about. I lovingly refer to it as the zero to Nazi effect. This is in any given conversation, especially on social media, when there's a disagreement, the length of time it takes to go from 0 to you're a Nazi. I will now punch you in the face and go outside and set fire to your car. That's just how we disagree these days. Well, on the Whine No Whine Show, we have a solution. It's wine.
That's really most of it right there.
Right. Wine. Glorious wine. Everything. My precious wine. And today we're talking about a really fun subject. We are talking about, an interesting subject. We're talking about hate crimes. Is it necessary to label a crime as a hate crime? What do you guys think, right? Is this something that is a needed distinction? What are your thoughts on this? Chime in on the social media box. I don't even know what's happening there. There was a box slowly bouncing off of the screen.
Production crew is revolting.
Our comment feed just kind of marched its way off the screen.
Here you guys are going home.
Either he has suddenly come down with MS or he's just messing with me. I don't know. He's got the shakes. He's going through withdrawal and something. I don't know. Anyway, on today's show, we're discussing, is hate crime a necessary title? Do we need to have this distinction in the crime world, right? When it comes to punishment, that sort of thing. What are your thoughts on that? Chime in with your thoughts, because as we go through the show here, our production crew is going to pick out their favorite comments. So say something brilliant. You might make it to the comment feed, and the guests on the show here are going to respond to your thoughts. So make sure you chime in. On today's show, we are drinking a French Bordeaux. We normally are really organized and take a picture of the wine so that we can have it up on the screen so that you can see it. I just remember that right now. So we've had a series of issues today. So you're zoomed in as much as you can, I assume. I will hold it out as far as I can. This is a French Bordeaux called Chateau de Camaras. I don't know.
You did the Chateau Day beautifully. That was nice.
I got to the last word and lost it. It's all over. We just lost France. They're gone.
One thing you won't do is hand it to me to read, though. We know that from past experience, right? You don't want me reading the label, I'm sure.
These stupid Americans try to pronounce our common names. Can't even do it. Single language speaking idiots.
The nice thing is you don't have to worry about the French too much. No. They can get as mad as they want. No, they're not doing anything.
Right. Just insult us. Now it looks like Camersac, but I know that's not it. Something. I have no idea. Anybody here speak French? No. It's a French Bordeaux. I'll post a picture on Instagram tomorrow so you can see it. Anyway, that's what we're drinking. It's supposed to have aromas of blackberry, cherry, cedar wood with some hints or notes of blackberry, raspberry, and plum. It's a medium body wine, dry with a light medium tannin. So we'll be rating this today on the show at the end of the show, so stick around. And we post the ratings up on Instagram tomorrow, so make sure you follow us on Instagram at the Whine No Whine Show. If you type in Whine No Whine, you'll find us pretty much everywhere. Over on YouTube, also, where we have some amazing musician performances. Last night we had a couple, I mean, insanely talented. 17-year-old girl on the show last night. Like, who is Taylor Swift again? I mean, she was insanely good. Extremely well-written song, beautiful voice. Check her out. Phenomenal. That's up on our YouTube channel at the Whine No Whine Show. So, we are going to jump in. We're going to let our guests introduce themselves. A couple old hands, old pros on the show here. So I always start on the left-hand side.
Keyword there, old.
Yeah, mainly just old. Yeah, I don't know about the pro so much. Mainly old. And a couple of new first-time guests on the show, so be gentle.
Newbies.
Newbies, yeah. So Randall, tell us who you are.
Youngsters.
Yes.
Well, first, thanks
Shameless
for having me
plugs.
on the show. Well, always happy to see new guests on the show. And I usually would say ladies go first, but it's Joe's show. So, and it's just, if you have OCD, it's around the circle.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's 100% what happens. I can't go out of order. That freaks me out.
Well, like I said, I'm Randall Chesnutt. I have a digital agency. We work with teaching people how to take what's in their brain and turn it into a product or a service. We've probably all heard this, but just not internalized it. That people have told you, like, if you want to have everything in life, what is the one thing that you have to do?
Work harder.
Work hard.
Right.
Or work harder. Well, I'm sure that everybody that's in this room, including the studio audience, worked hard, but if they're not getting all the things they want, then that ain't it.
Mm-hmm.
And what it is really working smarter.
Yeah.
And the new generation are taking what even the small amount of information that they have learned and packaging it up and selling it. So if you want to do that, you've had something regardless of what age group you're in. We work with people and help them do that, and we actually help them produce shows just like this to get their name out there. So that's what we do.
There you go.
That's one of the things
All right.
we do.
Awesome. Very good.
I want to point out that Donna is the second guest in the show's history who brought a notepad
She sure did.
and notes.
I felt
Yeah,
so
You know you're in
unprepared.
trouble when.
Yeah.
Right? They're like, I want to remind you of a point you said. I think your exact words were.
Yes.
Okay, but I have
Knock
the
that
advantage
down.
there because I'm married to a wife who does that very same thing. So it's all right. I'm good.
They don't need notes. They
I
like
was
just
just gonna say,
kidding.
I think wives
They
have
don't
a-
need wives. They don't need
Right.
notes. That's right.
Right, an
Remember-
innate notepad in their head.
You know what you did back on September 20th, 1972. You know what you did.
20 p.m.
That's right.
Donna, who are you? Tell us who you are and what you are up to.
Okay, so first of all, I'm here for the red wine. So let me get that out of the way. Second of all, I'm great friends with Joe Orsak, who is a phenomenal person, and very happy that you invited me to speak on the show.
Settle up with you now.
I think he's a very smart, very brilliant person. I just I have thought that since we had you on Channel
Channel 2.
2. Okay, so we got Joe on Channel 2. So that's what we do. I have a PR and marketing company. It's called DW Omni Media. And not only do we help customers get their message out there, we also book for American Idol. So I want to know your girl's name.
Wow.
American Idol, The Voice, and America's Got Talent. So we do all kinds of things. So if you want to get your message or your voice out there, then give us a call. And that's me.
Awesome.
Very good. Savannah Atkins, by the way. That was her name.
Okay.
I'll introduce you.
Fortunately,
Write it down.
I have my notepad.
Yes.
And I can write that down, Savannah.
I will make an
Savannah.
introduction.
You're
Yeah.
welcome, Savannah.
Insanely
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
So, and as a funny side note, after the show, just on the fly, we just, we throw on Instagram camera and just kind of, it's like behind the scenes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she played a song. She said, I've taken Krav Maga and kickboxing. She's a black belt. And she goes, but you can't get in fights at school. She goes, so I took my anger out on this person by writing this song. And the song was called Throat Punch. And,
There you go.
Awesome.
and the song is all like really cutesy, sweet. She has this like angelic voice,
Yeah.
And it's like, she's like, she says, I can hit you with a hook, I can hit you with a punch, I can make you regret having lunch. And like,
awesome.
yeah, but it was all sang in this beautiful little tiny angelic voice. The irony of that was freaking amazing. It was a beautiful song. I loved it. So anyway,
and I will say, comb back through the previous episodes of the Artist Edition. There have been
some
done
amazing
a great
talent.
job of getting some good talent.
Some
on there.
insanely good talent.
Check it out.
Yeah. So,
Very nice.
Bridget.
So I am Bridget Martin Moore. I am a realtor and kind of
Not a realtor.
not a realtor. That
Yeah.
is pet peeve number 342.
Yeah. I used to
It's
work.
that low on the list.
I used to work for a good
The
builder.
number- yeah. I mean, and some realtors can't even pronounce it, which is fabulous.
Rob cooked like forever and ingrained this in my head.
Love Rob.
Realtor.
Yes, but it's almost, I mean, it's your psychiatrist, your,
Yes, therapist.
judge, therapist,
Marriage counselor.
everything.
Yes.
Absolutely.
But I'm a little different in the sense that I like fun clients. I like clients that like wine. I like the ones that like to, mix it up a little bit
Right.
and make some money on the same time. So
Right.
love it. Been doing it 12 years. I'm a new mom, so I've got a 4-month-old. Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So that's been interesting, learning how to, after 12 years of not having a newborn with real estate.
Oh, my
so
gosh, yeah.
it's fun though. Now I
Your newborn had
understand-
real estate already?
Yeah, well,
That's
he does.
amazing.
He tags along.
Genetic, just
Yeah.
genetic.
Why can't I do that?
So, but I love it. Yes,
Fantastic.
awesome.
Good for
Thank
you. Good
Thank
for you.
you.
David.
I'm David Pipkin, crusty old veteran of the Whine No Whine show. Dried up Grapehead at this point, I guess. But I will stay with my shameless plug with regarding to you left lane hogs out there. I'm going to say, get out of my lane, okay? But
This is week 3 of
I
the
know.
shameless
Well,
plug.
week 1 it got deleted, but week 2 we made the point crystal clear. But no, the main point this week is again, we are going to have a meeting for the Harris County Constitution Party. It'll be on Saturday, July the 21st. We're still nailing down the final details as far as location and exact time, but it is happening Saturday, July 21st. I believe it was May that I accepted their request to become the coordinator for Harris County for the Constitution Party of Texas. So if you how do we put this very succinctly? If you have come to understand that we are not getting the government, not only that we deserve, but that our founders called for in our founding documents, which is a constitutional republic, that neither half of the corrupt duopoly is delivering that to us. We're not looking for political experts. We're not looking for people that know everything about every issue or policy wonks. All we want is people who care about having suitable and relevant representation in our government. So look me up. You can message the page at the Whine No Whine Show if you have any questions or want more details. We also have a Facebook page, which is Constitution Party of Texas - Harris County. Okay, that's our Facebook page. So look us up and get involved.
Outstanding. All right, so.
And stay out of the left lane.
Stay out of the left lane.
I second that.
Yes.
And white cars. Have you ever noticed that? White cars go the slowest on the freeway.
Are
Yes.
you? That's a
Yeah,
great
black
segue
cars.
into our
Yes.
topic.
She's chorus. She's chorus.
You're a chorist, aren't you?
Oh, pass my mobile device over here to the production crew so that they can invite obnoxiously all my friends to the show.
Yes.
Oh, that's fair.
Any group that won't have us, we won't have you.
That's right. Share it all over the place. Yeah. So, topic for today, hate crimes. Is it necessary to label a crime a hate crime? Give me your 1-minute take on your position. Yes, no, it's a good thing, it's a bad thing, here's why. And I'll start with David this time on the right side.
I knew you were going to come over this way. I knew you would do that, but you didn't. You didn't throw me off my game, man. No, very succinctly, the answer to that is no. I think that that our justice system is that for a reason. They're not there to discern motives or thought patterns or try to get inside your head. The reality is that if we do something that breaks the law, particularly if it's a violent act against another individual, very clearly at some level, whatever level that may have been, there was hate involved. So to have a hate crime, all you're doing is opening a door that actually has the potential to lead to further tyranny. I'll leave it at that.
Okay. There's a couple little nuggets in there to work on. Yeah.
I'm the veteran Grapehead, man.
Yes.
That's what we do.
Yes. Bridget.
I say yes. I think it
What?
does. I know.
That's it. I'm out of here.
Don't make me throw punch you. Nobody do a glue deck. Nobody gets to do a glue
I'm
deck.
gonna say, don't make me throw punch you.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there are crimes that are not necessarily hate, and I do feel that those that are geared more towards, racism or maybe against the gay and lesbian community, that they're different in the sense of, a crime of passion is not necessarily the same in my opinion. And while yes, they're both crimes, going after someone strictly for the fact that maybe they're a different race than I am, or a different sexual orientation, I do feel like it should be a different classification and more punishable, personally.
Okay. Donna.
Well, and the reason it should be more punishable is because a hate crime, you said there's hate involved, okay? So yes, there's hate involved, but with a hate crime, the hate involved is towards a specific group. And that's what makes it different, and that's what makes hate crime so necessary, because it's based on, religion, gender, sexual identity, all these different demographics, we'll call them. And so, I would say the genesis of a hate crime was the lynch laws against the KKK. And the reason that was necessary was that it helps to highlight the societal ills of racism and discord in our society, and that if a man rapes a woman, there's certainly hate involved. If a man rapes a black woman, then there's a demographic involved, and if it is racially motivated in that way, then that's what continues to drive a wedge in society. So hate crimes were developed so that we do not have this vicious cycle of further driving a wedge between demographics with the common denominator of hate.
Some very interesting points. Randall.
So it's such a complicated issue, because when you say a crime, well, it's a crime when I drive on the shoulder. And when you think about laws and why somebody creates a law, it's to deter you from doing something. And trust me, I know that it's illegal to drive on the shoulder, but I do it because I'm in a hurry, and I don't mind if I get pulled over. Honestly,
But
I
the
don't.
shoulder is not a demographic.
No. So here's what I'm saying. I'm just saying. I'm saying that different types of crime. Like when you say crime, it covers anything that breaks the law is considered a crime.
So hang on. Let me get his
Yes.
Just
bullet point in.
Yes.
So
all of y'all have
one-
been wrong so far. I wanted to say something, but I'm not going to do that. Go ahead, Randall.
So far you're all wrong, but I politely wait my turn.
I'm just kidding.
All right, so go
I
ahead.
know what Bill Maher feels like. So to say a crime, I think when most people hear what we're talking about, they're thinking about like you killed someone.
Right.
So when you kill one, first off, you have to be out of your mind, number one, to just kill somebody anyway. And there are different levels of premeditation, like you thought about it.
Right.
So there's a different level. So there's already laws to cover those types of things, as opposed to a crime of passion, or it was manslaughter, or all those types of things. So I'm saying that I don't think that there should be, mainly because I drive on the shoulder. And it doesn't deter me. If the law doesn't deter me, it deters somebody from doing something, which pretty much every law doesn't. I mean, if somebody wants to kill you, they don't care if there's a law about it, whether it's whether you add an additional amount of time of, I'm going to go to jail for an extra year.
But wait, what if they added another $100 to the fine?
I'd still do it. I'd still do it because it's. I have my
Thinkable moment right there. That's a great point.
So the answer to the question, I said all that is that I don't think there should be a distinction.
Okay. All right. So we have all sorts of nuances going on in there.
Yes.
And wait till you read the comment
But-
feed. I bet that's
Yeah.
crazy right now,
Yeah.
too.
But I don't want this to look like, that women are more empathetic, so we feel like, and the men are,
You're not being
Yeah,
empathetic. You're
so-
saying you want to punch them more.
Yeah.
no,
That's
Yeah.
total
well,
opposite.
empathetic towards society,
Yeah, and no, I didn't perceive it that way at all.
Yeah, I didn't
no, I mean, both of you.
You sound
stated-
more ruthless.
Yeah. Both of you guys
I'm gonna take
stated.
that as a compliment.
That's good. No, it's like-
Both of you guys stated your.
Yeah.
Both of you ladies stated your
Yeah.
point
Yeah.
very saliently, and
I agree.
you very thoroughly made your case for why you wanted to believe what you did.
Thank you.
So there's some inherent questions that I have along the way. For your and you had such a great commentary, and I'm just about to jump in and be a guest here
Okay.
instead of being a host. So I'm going to turn it over to you guys and say we had some brilliant comments all the way around. Who wants to go first on kind of probing and asking about the others' positions here?
Please.
Well, I think you were saying
Go ahead.
something when I was
Oh,
Go ahead.
So did he, but that's okay. That's okay.
He always has, so nobody cares about him.
I always like to give everybody an opportunity
He's
to
not
step
wearing
in
blue.
it. I just want to get y'all an opportunity to step in it.
Y'all have it.
So
And
you're
then,
just
gray and
Pedro
black.
against the gray, huh?
And then I'm
Look,
gonna-
Look,
all right.
look, we have blue,
Yeah.
right? We're all blue, and they're like gray and black
Yeah,
on the
yeah,
outside.
yeah.
so,
Take a stand.
And bespectacled white males. I mean, there you go.
yeah.
Well, I'll just go back to the genesis of hate crimes were the lynch laws against the KKK. And the reason that hate crimes are so important as being labeled hate crimes is not only because they drive a wedge between demographics and also reveal societal ills, but it helps to bring down certain organizations and groups. That's why the Southern Poverty Law Center with Morris Dees specifically focuses on hate crimes, and they have brought down the KKK in many instances. And so that is necessary to stop the money trail to the KKK to continue to perpetrate these kinds of crimes. So that is good for society to be able to go after these organizations, groups, gangs in that way.
So I have questions, but I'm anticipating.
You can. Go ahead. I can wait.
Oh no, I
won't die. I might die from being offended, but I won't die from waiting.
I don't want to. I don't.
Actually, I might have gotten that backwards.
You got that backwards. You want that from being offended.
Right.
Wait long enough.
There's no offended tumor. I promise. Like nobody's gonna grow an offended
gonna
tumor
get a
and die.
tumor.
Yes.
It's not a tumor.
It's not an offended tumor. No. So my question is, you said at the intro that the hate crime drives a wedge, right, in society, right? Would it really? I mean, the distinction of the law, Randall's point, was that we already have laws in the books. We have first degree, second degree, third degree murder. We have manslaughter. We have involuntary manslaughter. We have all these distinctions to separate the idea of why the crime was committed, right? What is the particular advantage that isn't addressed outside of calling it a hate crime? If that didn't exist, right? That title was gone. What specific advantage does that distinction give us that would go away if it didn't
Okay.
exist?
So it would be like bringing down organizations and gangs and groups like the KKK. That, back in the day of lynching, that the KKK basically had free reign. They could do whatever they wanted to do, however they wanted to do it. And we had already devalued the African American community so much that, people, I mean, you see pictures of of black men being lynched, or black people being lynched, women also, and people are smiling. They're looking up and they're smiling. I mean, that the black life just had no meaning whatsoever. And so the KKK was given a free pass. Well, today that is different. It's not saying the KKK doesn't continue to perpetrate, but what it says is that it's harder and harder and it's more unacceptable. Today, you would not see a group of people around the tree of John Q. Publix gathered around the tree yeah, go ahead. Give me again there,
Okay.
Joe. That just thinks that's an okay thing, and also it has an entertainment value to it. That's no longer acceptable because we had lynch laws then, because we started pointing out that this was a hate crime, because we're pointing out that there's a specific demographic that was involved, whether it be women, whether it be gays, whether it be color of skin, whatever that is, that it shows the societal ill of racism, bias, and it helps to correct that through the form of the under the umbrella of hate crimes, also in penalty.
Okay, so I have a couple of questions for you. First, I want to clarify something because I had not heard this before. You're saying that the genesis of hate crime legislation began with the KKK?
No. The genesis of the understanding of what a hate crime was, I'm not talking about legislation, were the lynchings.
Okay.
And the KKK perpetrating against the African American community, not because they thought they necessarily did something wrong, they were simply black.
Okay.
Okay.
So here's my first counterpoint to you, and I want to ask you a question.
Okay.
In any given year, do you know what the statistics are for white on black rape versus black on white rape? To go to your specific example, like you mentioned, if there's interracial rape, right? Especially if there's because you are correct in terms of fact, you have a rape which involves gender clearly, and it is certainly a hate crime. It takes a certain level of hate for a male to rape a female. It's not a sex crime,
Right.
as many people report it. It's a hate
Yeah.
crime.
So
Okay,
it's a
in
power
terms of
play.
I don't mean hate crime like a like what we're
Right.
talking about politically. I'm saying it involves hate. Okay, but do you know the numbers, the actual numbers, annually for black on white rape versus white on black rape? Are you familiar with that?
No. Had I had more than 6.5 minutes to prepare for the show,
And this
I would
is-
have had that. But
Nobody
no, but
gets.
tell me.
Nobody knows the topic before.
Yeah,
you
we
guys know
decided this
And we get
15 minutes before
Yes.
the show.
6 minutes.
That's
like
kind of
that.
the point.
Right. So, but I want to ask you, what is the relevance of you asking that?
No, that's what I'm
yeah,
getting to,
okay.
because the point is that what many people don't know, because this is the common narrative in America. It's this narrative of black victimization at the hands of endless white racism, and then to justify that allegation, you have to go back to the KKK. It's not happening anymore, and it hasn't been happening for decades. Hold on, hear my point. Okay, here's the reality. Donna. You're laughing,
No,
but here's the
okay.
reality.
Okay.
In an annual basis, there's more than 30,000, 40,000 rapes, black on white, of women in the United States of America. Do you know how many there are of white on black?
No.
In 1 year, 2013, I believe it was, the number was actually 0. It's statistically an anomaly. It's so low that it basically doesn't happen. It's in the dozens, maybe on a bad year in the hundreds. Now, I take your point, and because there's actually been
I actually challenged those statistics.
I
but
know,
okay.
and that's what commonly happens on the show.
Yeah,
But if you
yeah,
look it
yeah.
up and look up the FBI
Yeah,
crime
yeah.
statistics and Bureau of Justice statistics, where they actually provide the breakdown, because that's been one of the challenges, is that, and this opens up another
And if our
point.
production crew can actually do a quick Google on that, we've
Yeah.
got some pretty sharp folks behind the scenes here
Mm-hmm.
to find some of those numbers. Yeah.
Well,
we'll
part
throw it
of
up on the
this
screen.
argument opens up to another aspect of this whole discussion, is that when you talk about hate crime legislation, you are now leaving it up to a group of political activists to decide what is a hate crime. We have, you can look on YouTube and see video after video after video of black mob violence where black students jump on a white kid or a Mexican kid or particularly an Asian kid. Okay? That happens, it's really at epidemic levels, okay? And the reality is you're not seeing, there are no videos, there is no evidence. The worst thing you hear about is someone may say, well, he said a racial epithet against me. But there's no evidence of that. What we see on an evidentiary basis is black on white predominantly violence. But here's the other statistic for you. With regard to, because I think we could all agree that
Well, let's talk about evidentiary. Let's just talk about
Well, wait,
evidentiary.
let me
Let's
wrap
talk
up my
about
point.
Orlando. Let's talk about someone going in and shooting up an entire gay club.
Okay, but you're
okay,
hold
and
on.
that is a hate crime.
But
That's a hate crime. And what did we
Donna,
learn through that?
you're not letting
that
me
is
finish
not
my point.
acceptable. But you're just talking about evidentiary. I was just talking about evidentiary.
I know you're taking one instance that's not evidentiary. I'm talking about a trend, evidence that establishes a trend. Okay, what I'm talking about,
It is a trend.
and right now we're talking about race. The opening it up to sexual preference is a whole different ball of wax.
But it's
Okay.
all hate crimes.
Okay, I understand that's your take. What I'm saying is that when you look at where the crimes are actually happening, I think we would all agree that the greatest manifestation of racism would be for one person to do violence against another person on the basis of race. Agreed?
Agreed.
Okay. Well, where we're seeing that, because are you aware that in all of the violent interactions, which there's nearly 700,000 every year, violent interactions between blacks and whites, blacks are the aggressor in over 83 to 84% or more of all those interactions. The overwhelming category of interracial violent crime is black on white. And blacks are the only race where the level of violent crime outside of their race is near or exceeding the level of violent crime within their race. No other race has this happening. Yet what we hear, to wrap up my point, is this endless narrative of white racism and black victimization. And it's not actually what is happening. It's not actually what the police are seeing, and it's not actually what our citizens are seeing on a day-to-day basis.
I real quick, I want to just, as a reminder, the topic, I want to make sure we
Hate crime.
keep it in the context of the topic, right? Is labeling these interactions, all this sort of thing, necessary? Is there an advantage? Is there a point, a
Well, see-
gain
I
in
see what
calling
he's
it a hate
saying.
crime?
But see, that is, so I'm just going to call that a gross generalization.
Well, you're going back to the KKK. What is that?
No,
You're
Well, hang
talking
on.
about
I'll let her
white
finish.
racism,
Wait a second,
talking
hang
about
on.
the KKK.
Hang on, David. I'll say let her finish her point.
I'm saying it's a gross generalization to say that's not happening anymore, which I think that is
By and large,
very
that's not happening.
a very uneducated statement.
Okay.
So I just think we need to really get our facts straight here.
I think you're
because-
not understanding my
Okay.
statement.
Okay.
I'm not saying it never happens.
Hang on.
I'm not saying it never happens. I'm saying that you're speaking to generalization. I'm speaking to generalization.
So let me just say something to TV land here. This is civility
Yeah.
and disagreement.
Yeah.
So this is what the
Point
show's
is, yeah.
about.
That's the point.
It's
Yeah,
about
there's passion,
how to
absolutely.
disagree
Passion,
about
not
being civil.
insults. There's a
Right.
big difference.
So afterwards, I'm going to punch him in the throat.
But say it to me first.
Right. So look, and I always, one of the great for me, and this is like a good teaching moment through the show, is to say to clarify our understanding of the other person's point.
Right.
All right. To say, if I hear you correctly, what your take is this. Am I correct? Did I get that right? And then say, here's why I disagree with it. It's a great tool to
Right.
use.
So affirmation of what you just said, and yes. Okay.
Right.
So if I'm hearing you correctly,
Nicely
You-
done.
you are have the opinion that most of the crime is black on white, and that you feel like the racism, as was in the past, isn't happening anymore in that way. That we should be so ultra sensitive to everything being a hate crime when perpetrated against the African American.
The one correcting caveat I would put on that is to say that I'm not saying it never happens. That's a totally different statement. What I'm saying is that, again, we're speaking to generalizations. You're speaking to generalizations. I'm speaking to generalizations. In a general sense, no, you're not seeing an epidemic of white on black racism. And I'm not trying to make the case that the black on white violent crime that we're seeing is necessarily an outgrowth of black on white racism.
Right.
It could be. We can't disqualify that. But what I am saying, and this is where, and I appreciate the opportunity to tie it back to the point, because the point is that depending on whose eyes are viewing the situation will determine whether it's seen as a hate crime or not.
Okay, so I understand what you're saying.
Well,
So
let me
just
quantify
respond.
the
Let me
statement.
just respond.
Okay, Donna,
I
but
say-
let me quantify the statement just so we can be clear about what I mean by that. Because for many, many years now, Hispanics were lumped in with white people to make the crime numbers look more like there was more whites committing violent crime. even though it was Hispanics, not whites. Okay, that only recently was broken apart in the Bureau of Justice Statistics. Okay, also what tends to happen is when there are instances of black on white violence, it's not investigated as a hate crime. It's not counted as a hate crime statistic. Even though it's an instance of black on white violence, we don't have the knee-jerk reaction of, a black guy beat up a white guy, therefore it was racism. Like in Ferguson, what did we see? White cop shoots black unarmed teen, the natural implication being it must be racism. And so a lot of the black on white crimes that are being committed to the tune of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands are not being even asked the question of whether there was hate crime intent involved. That is the danger of opening that up, because depending on who's in power, like your version of hate crime, I would probably agree with you. We would probably all agree in this room about what we would call a hate crime. But I'm with Joe, I'm with Randall to a large extent. I don't trust our government to make that distinction for me. And when you let the government climb into our heads and start determining what is and is not a hate crime, now you have a selective outrage that gets added to the persecution and prosecution of what is a crime. To me, it's enough that if I murder somebody, then I should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law for murdering somebody.
Okay, but the definition of a hate crime is to have bias against a specific demographic.
And who determines
Okay,
that?
okay.
You're fine with that, but the government's saying
the government's already defined it as race, creed, color, ethnicity, sexual orientation, and it's like you said, not to start it. I mean, we're there. We're in the throes of it. I mean, it's already out
and
there.
that same
What
government
we're saying
is much quicker to note a white on black crime as a hate crime than they are a black on white crime. They call that random violence.
Can I jump in? Because I don't want. We don't want. There's like 2 other guests there on the show.
I know.
Oh, Randall, you're there. Yeah.
First off,
sorry.
So
I'm just gonna keep drinking.
I want to hear what everybody got to say.
Yes. Yeah.
Because I did a whole live on this crime, not a hate crime, just crime in general. Looking at, going back before there was social media, and there was like 3 channels, and your dad sat in the chair, and as a son, you like go change the channel, and if it got foggy on the television, you had to hold the antenna and the rabbit ears, and if it worked, then don't move. Because there was very little information. There was very little information to be disseminated, right? It was like Walter Cronkite, and it was like a little bit. Now we have 24/7 and inundated with news, so it naturally is going to feel like that it's more violent, there's more crime, there's more all of this stuff, when to David's point about, not his point, but the point meaning that what you feel like is going on is actually 100% not correct. If you go to the Bureau of Investigation, the FBI, CiCi, you go to all of those and you look at those numbers and you look at crime, not just death, robberies, grand larceny, everything across the board, it is unbelievably dramatically down over the past 25
I can
years.
see how you might say that.
Well, I'm not saying that. I'm saying
I just want to invite you. I just want to invite you to read one newsletter from the Southern Poverty Law Center, Morris Dees, and look at all of the hate crimes that were perpetrated in a month's time. And when you look at those, actually, none of those you've seen on TV.
Well, hold
They're
on
all
a minute.
happening
Hold on
out
a minute.
in.
Can I just finish my point to your point?
Yes.
Go ahead, because I got a comment I got to make.
Because I'm not referring to any of those specifics
Yeah.
of those. The FBI documents everything. Or these people, they don't distinct between. I'm saying across the board, all the ones that, just because you don't see it on TV doesn't mean that they don't put it on a ticker at the police station, the local, the federal, or the national level. They still put a tick that someone broke in a house and all of those types. So
or
regardless
somebody blew
of
up a black church.
yeah, they do that.
Yeah,
They still
okay,
do that.
That would be a hate crime.
They still, I'm not talking about. My point isn't right now about the black. I'm just saying.
Okay.
Looking at it from it could take the emotion out, because a lot of people, we're emotional creatures.
Yes.
And we're naturally inclined, because we have crocodile brains, to want to protect ourselves. And we always want to look for what is going to hurt me.
Right.
So we always gravitate towards what's going to hurt me. And that's what the news knows. So they play on that. And they put stories out that they know is going to make you watch TV longer so that they can make more money. Because you got to always look at that's how they make money.
Mm-hmm.
But if you could pull out the emotion, understand all of that, and just go look at the facts, and say, before I get upset about whatever I've seen on the television, let me go look at the facts. Did that happen? Yeah, that happened. It blew up a church, all that stuff. I'm saying, are we overall safer? And do we need to change laws to be safer? We are safer. We're safer than we've ever been at any time in documented history. We are safer now.
That's great.
Could we? Is it possible to be safer? Probably so. Do we need to change a law?
People are carrying guns now. We're not safer.
Well,
People are shooting each other for spilling popcorn at each other in the movie theater.
I just, because I looked, and so if I didn't look, I would say I would agree with you. I would say I don't know. I can't know.
Yeah.
If you looked, if you go look after yours, because he's looked as well, and I know Joe has. So we got 3 people who have actually
Even
looked
just a
at
few
the data.
seconds ago, literally.
Looked at the data. You'll see it. You'll see what we see. And then you could say it doesn't make you wrong in what you're saying.
But
it just
we're
says
saying,
it's
should
safer.
hate crimes be called hate crimes? So we're not really
Because
talking
to make it safer, and I'm saying it doesn't.
It doesn't
Hang on,
make
hang on,
it
hang
safer.
on, hang on,
It's not
hang on.
about making it safer.
Everybody
It's
pause.
about protecting demographics.
Do you think that
Pause.
somebody's going to kill someone
Pause.
cares that they're going to kill you because you're gay? They have to be insane to kill someone. They don't think to themselves, I'm not going to kill
Gays are
because it's
more in
law.
fear of their life
Hang on.
than I am.
Let me
right
ask you a
now.
question.
I agree with that statement.
Okay, right.
But that doesn't make it a hate crime.
Because of
Hang on,
hate
guys.
crimes.
Hang on.
Okay.
There's people that hate
Hang on.
old blind women somewhere.
Did you say old?
Oh my gosh!
I did.
Okay, that was not so
An old
That was
white
not
guy
so
just
Would that be
called.
considered a
called
hate
old.
crime?
Yeah. So listen. Here's the one. Just from a reminder, let each other finish your thoughts. Talking over each other. For those watching, translates to I can't hear any of them.
Would you let someone finish for a change? I mean,
Bridget,
golly.
I mean,
I'm just gonna
Bridget.
drink all the wine.
I'm just.
while
I'm
y'all fight
gonna
it
have to
out.
ask you to leave shortly if you don't quiet down. All right. See, what y'all didn't notice is that she's been drinking all the wine the whole time. That y'all are,
She's smarter than
Yeah.
all of us.
Yeah. All right. So this is where it's always, one thing that I've learned, and to Randall's point, is that media has one job. That's to sell advertisement. Anything that's on TV, on the radio, on print, it wouldn't be there if they weren't making money, and they're making money by sponsor dollars and all the things that come along with it.
And they clearly
Right.
have high ethics and standards in what it takes to do that, right?
Right,
They have
right,
a
right.
very high standard.
And
That
so,
doesn't make all of it
hang
not
on.
true.
Right, exactly. That doesn't negate the different articles, the different points. It can still be very true, but always to be reminded that there is a motivation with every channel, and it's right, it's left, it's all everywhere in between. They all have their agendas, they all have their biases, and that sort of thing. So to Randall's point is that we have crime data that is recorded about as objectively as you can be recorded. It's just the ticker, so to speak. How many people were reported this? I don't care what color, I don't care if they were gay, I don't care if they were whatever. Were they assaulted? Were they, whatever? Was the crime premeditated, etc.? The ticker goes.
Well, especially
right?
when it's a victim
And-
survey, too.
Right, exactly.
Because the
and it's-
victim has to say, this is who did it to me.
Right. So
Right.
it's a reported crime. The crime gets reported. It's local police. That data gets transmitted up the chain with the FBI, et cetera. And I'm sure there's flaws somewhere in the system, et cetera, but the flaws impact all sides equally, right? And so to Randall's point is, if you look at just data, the Southern Poverty Law Center, I'm very familiar with them. I'm not knocking them. They get one of my favorite resources, MediaBiasFactCheck.com. I'm a big fan of theirs. They give them a left of center, not super far off center, left of center with a high degree of accuracy, right? And there's a higher rating than that. There's a very high rating, but they have a high degree. So they give them points for that, right? But they also have an agenda,
Yes.
right? They have an agenda, just like anybody that was slightly right of center who had high factual reporting. So in order to be as objective as possible, rather than going to an intermediary between the FBI, between criminal data, just generically recorded data. How many homicides were there? What was the race? Who perpetrated the crime? Across the board, I can go to FBI data. It's publicly available, right? I don't need Fox News or CNN. I don't need anybody to interpret it for me. I can go look at it myself, right? And so to that point, that's where some of the stuff that David's talking about and the kind of the points that Randall had alluded to, that's where I'm like, I want to go to the data itself and try to, as objectively as possible, view that, right? And I would encourage everybody to do that because that's where we can have the most really, in knowledgeable conversation without somebody else's spin on it, so to speak, happening. I would encourage our audience to do that. And kind of that brings me to the point we're already behind the curve here on time. I always tell our guests, they say, how long is the show? My answer is always the same, an hour-ish.
You don't think this was going long, do you?
Ish.
I really wanted to hear what you
Right, she's got some thoughts. So, it's going to be your job, when we come back from the break, to be the first out of the chute to respond to the guest comment.
And we want to know the left center field wall, all right? Out of the park.
Be brilliant.
Be brilliant.
Yes. So we're going to go to a commercial break from one of our sponsors. Our production crew brilliantly had it on the screen reminding me of who it was prior to this moment in space and time, but I've already forgotten, and I was stalling this whole time, giving them time to put it back up on the screen. So we're going to go to a break, and we're going to hear from Body Mechanics, one of our wonderful sponsors up in Longview, so make sure you check them out. And when we come back, we're going to be hitting your comments. We're going to see who our production crew thought was intelligent and who made the cut, and the rest of you are morons. So
no, they're just great beds. That's all. They're great beds.
I'm kidding. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor, and we're going to get to your comments.
Do you suffer from chronic back pain? There is a solution to the suffering. The Body Mechanics, an orthopedic and medical massage focused practice that specializes in helping clients work through and overcome musculoskeletal injuries and chronic pain. By applying our science-based concepts through the art of massage therapy techniques, we can help you eliminate that pain. At the Body Mechanics, we take it as our responsibility to provide our clients with the highest level of care. We take time to get to know you, your history, and your obstacles, and most importantly, your wellness goals. We help you meet your goals through skillfully applied advanced massage therapy techniques and recommending self-care routines to improve overall well-being. Come in today and let the Body Mechanics apply our years of training and expertise to soothe away your aches. Mention this ad and receive our functional movement assessment for free, a $35 savings.
Well, we don't do that.
We just signed an agreement to not do that.
We're back.
It was a 30-second spot, That or the commercial was a mail and it finished quickly. I don't know.
Yes.
That was terrible.
No. Ding. We just lost our PG rating right there.
What are you talking about?
Yeah. All right.
So let's
Jordan Anderson.
Reliable.
Yeah. Yes. Jordan tunes in and is a regular commenter on the show. Love Jordan. He's up in Minnesota. I got it right for once. It's north of Dallas. So he's somewhere north of Dallas, and he always comments on the show, and he's always has some really good information. So Jordan said, and you're up. Okay. You're up. You gotta address this comment.
I need to address the comment.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Do I read it? Or?
I'm gonna read it.
Okay.
I'll give it to you right here.
You let her read it. She didn't say a thing.
I know. I should give her some.
She had her 1 minute bullet point. That was it.
I should turn over the host thing and let her read it.
I know, right?
Go ahead.
Read
the comment.
I'm
what did Jordan Anderson say?
So Jordan Anderson said that between 2002 and 2012, the group with the highest reported violent hate crimes is LGBT, 35.6 per 100,000, which is more than double any other demographic, and that is the wiki source for his.
So I'm guessing, Jordan, if I don't want to represent your point incorrectly, you're saying that the group that has the highest reported violent hate crimes against it, not that the LGBT community is out there violently attacking everybody at a ratio much higher than anybody else. Right?
Other than on social media.
And I just want to point out that Jordan obviously has a problem with the Q part of the group there.
You forgot the Q,
because you forgot the Q. So Jordan, you're
questioning, not queers.
That's queers.
No.
Jordan is obviously going to be getting a lot of hate mail. Potentially death threats for leaving off those who question.
Yeah.
So, And I just want to point out that I can't believe that the bees are getting away with their situation, because they're obviously asserting that there's only two sides of sexuality in their bi-ness. So I can't believe the LGs, T's, and Q's are okay with the bees. So
They're not.
Was she your point? Did you already say what your point is?
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
That's a whole other topic.
Our moderator just became a guest.
I turned on the host on to her now. All right. So how do you feel about Jordan's comment?
Damn it,
there?
Joe, you're a moderator.
I agree. I mean, I appreciate Jordan's comment. Thank you for looking it up, first of all, because we're obviously hindered. We can't.
Right.
But real quick, I've kind of sat back, drank some wine, listened to everybody. My
You listened to
initial-
that?
I did. I took it all in. And,
What were you talking
about?
My
But
glass is empty.
yeah, you need more. Here, drink some wine. So I did have a question for you, Dave.
All right.
And is it my?
Sure.
Good to speak?
Rock
Okay.
on.
You have waited and been
Yes.
incredibly
We
patient.
have the rest of the show.
Yes.
Just go.
Awesome. You don't know what you're in for. So, and I may say something that's a little not popular.
That's right.
But it's really more of a question than anything.
Okay.
So, when going back to your rape comments and situations,
Mm-hmm.
it was more about the black on the white, and that's happening more than say white on black, for example.
Right.
But my question is, do you consider a white rape victim a part of this hate crime? So like if a black male or female, I guess, to be fair, were to commit a rape against a white male or female, is that then considered a hate crime?
Right.
Well, you
It's
don't.
a fantastic question.
Yeah, actually,
No,
that's
it's
a very
Because
salient
I think
point.
that's a very critical thing here that people are or at least my opinion is, there can still be hate crimes against white men and women. And that's where I think a large issue with this conversation lies, is we're trying to make it such a, it's only for the blacks. It's only for the lesbian and the gay communities. There could be heterosexual hate crimes. They probably don't happen as often, I would assume. Jordan can probably look it up for us if you're still watching.
Jordan's always watching.
Yes. So, my thing is hate. And I do agree that with everything that you've said, in the sense of, there's murder, then there's manslaughter, then there's all these different classifications, going back to the murder point, because again, I've taken in everything. Intent to me is huge. That plays such a role. If someone's going to get a lesser charge for manslaughter than they would first degree murder, for example. So I do think a hate crime should get a more punishable charge than just a rape. How to prove it, that's a whole other, again, topic. But if you're raping someone just because, even if they're white, if a black man is raping me because I'm white, that's a hate crime.
Right.
Just because I'm white, in my opinion, doesn't mean it shouldn't be I don't have to be black for it to be a hate crime.
Right. I agree with you.
Right.
So-
I agree.
And so here's to the point. This is what I was saying earlier. We would all agree on that point. I feel very confident from just our few minutes before the show that we would agree on that there being an element of hate to that crime, whether it's a black on white crime,
Right.
rape or a white on black rape. There would be an element of hate there. Let me say this. If there was some evidence of a hatred of that race, right? Now, so here's my point to that, is that this is, and this is what happens too. A lot of times you try to make a point and you don't land the plane, and I'm very guilty of that. I have the plane in the air,
Yeah.
and I don't bring it down.
Lost it great.
So my
there for 3
point,
weeks.
and
Yeah.
let me do this before I forget it.
Yeah.
My point in bringing up that fact was not to point out that there's black on white rape where white on black rape virtually is non-existent. While that's a fact, that wasn't the point.
Okay.
The point is to say that even knowing that fact, I don't support it being a hate crime, because you're opening a Pandora's box to allow the government to decide what is and isn't a hate crime. And what we're seeing by the empirical evidence of these statistics is that even with there being there are black so-called militant civil rights leaders. There, if you research and do some deep digging beneath the surface on the web, you will find many writings by Black Panther type people, the very same kind of people that do the Black liberation theology, all this kind of stuff that they talk about. They advocate to black militants, go out there and rape white women. You know, we are owed justice for these past sins of slavery and whatnot. And so there is an advocacy for this. That's empirical evidence. That's not just me saying what I think may be happening. And I'm saying that very clearly, if you've got 36,000 rapes in a given year of blacks on white, black men raping white women, there's got to be some number in there. I don't claim to know what it is, but there's got to be some number in there that was because of that motive. I'm black and you're white. I'm going to rob you and I'm going to rape you because you victimized me. I'm going to victimize you.
Right.
Now, we can debate on whether that's racism or not or anything else, but I don't think any of us would disagree that that's hate, okay? But the problem is that even with those statistics being what they are, the number of hate crime prosecutions is virtually zero out of 36,000 rapes every single year, black on white. So the problem is we have a very different filter being applied from our government as to what constitutes a hate crime, depending on whether it's a black on white or whether it's white on black. Again, let me finish this point.
And I want to ask a question. Go ahead.
When you look at Ferguson,
I want to ask a question.
all we needed to know for this to become a race issue was what the media put in the headlines. All of a sudden, the media decided to report race, right? When in Houston, which is where we are, right? A couple years ago, we had the execution-style murder of the deputy Darren Goforth, right? That was a few miles from my home, okay? I was fervently looking, because this was right there in Cypress, Texas. I'm looking online. The suspects at large. Who did this? What happened? I could not find a racial descriptor to save my life. Source after source after source. Could not find. What is the description? If we gave a description of the people in this room, we would all say Randall's a white male, you know, this tall, about this age, whatever. Those are descriptors. That's all they are. It's not racism to say he's white, right? Why is it racism to say the guy that killed a police officer is black? Hey, be on the lookout. Hey, Cypress, Texas, someone just killed a police officer at a gas station. The suspect's on the loose. He's black. He's this tall. He's driving this, right? Nothing. But all of a sudden in Ferguson, white cop shoots black unarmed teen in the frickin' headline. And we see that over and over and over again, where race gets highlighted if it's white on black. Let me finish, please. If it's white on black, race gets highlighted. If it's black on white, it's random. That's how it's reported. And there's so much information out there to show you what the pressure is being put on the media to not report it that way. These black civil rights groups, they call meetings in the various metropolitan groups and tell the media, don't report it this way because it makes the black community feel bad. But the fact of the matter is, this is what's happening. And so my point is that when you have all these instances and the question isn't even asked, see what I'm saying? Whereas if Joe or I or Randall did it against a black person, it would be assumed.
Right.
There's a huge disparity in what constitutes hate crime. And that's my opposition to it, is because I, like Joe, like Randall, I think I'm right, we don't trust government. It has nothing to do with any kind of racial stake in the matter. It's that I don't trust those bureaucrats because they all have a narrative. They all have an idea they're pushing. And I don't trust them to tell me what is and is not a hate question.
I actually have a question for you guys who started off in the we need the label, right, of a hate crime.
I'm very animated too, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, I like it.
I talk with my hands a lot.
Yes, that's fine.
The duck on occasion, he's harmless. And we've got some more good questions that I really want to get to. But I really want to ask this question, right? For me, in my heart of hearts, I'm driving to, in all of my actions, beliefs, and everything else, even through the show and what we're trying to accomplish here and all this sort of thing, for equality, right? I absolutely believe the
on your paperwork you say humanity.
So check it out. Yes,
humanity.
Absolutely. I absolutely believe the words that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. It's the very nature of being created that makes us equal. And that in that process of being created, because we're created, we have certain inalienable rights that cannot be taken away by anybody. Cannot be taken. We are owed these rights simply by the creative nature of who we are, right? I believe that with all my heart. And so everything I'm about through the show and everything is about that. So for me, one of the innate problems I have with labeling something a hate crime is that in the very process of labeling it a hate crime, it is racist. Did y'all hear me on this?
Yes.
Right?
In the very process of labeling a hate crime, it's racist.
In other words, for me to say I am going to recognize some differentiation about who you are, your skin's black, you have a sexual preference, whatever, in doing that, I am automatically making you different and not the same. Right? It's the whole separate but equal.
It's distinguishing the intent.
But hang on,
like
hang on.
Bridget was
So in other words, if Lady Justice is blind, right? I don't need to go to that point, is where I'm coming from. So I'm like, and in the very process of doing it, you're creating a separate but equal, right? Well, you're black, but you're still equal. But we just have to recognize your blackness in order to punish the crime a certain way.
Just a quick interjection.
I'm like, why not let Lady Justice be blind to that sort of thing and simply address the injustice at hand, period.
Just a quick
so
interjection.
That's my question.
That
Do you?
There's always been, in a prosecution of a violent crime, there's always been, the prosecution has always looked to try to establish motive, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's not necessary to convict, but when they can discern a motive, they like to put it out there so the jury can consider that. I'm all for that. That's fine. But to make it an element of punishment, now you're trying to get into the head of
right.
everybody.
It's not just the intent; it's punishment. In other words, in saying you should be punished differently because, and insert whether it's race or whatever,
right.
That was the motivation.
Because it's
now
actually,
you've made that a distinction.
The hate crime is actually more of a crime against society itself. So it's to example what are the norms. And rape is not always the intent is not hate.
Right.
The intent of rape is power and control.
I disagree with that.
Okay,
I agree with
someone
that.
have to hate me to rape me.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It's power control.
Okay, yeah, okay, it's power control. Okay, so when someone blows up or shoots members of a black church, that is distinguished because that shows that there is racial tension, and it is a wedge that's driven into the demographics of our society. So it highlights that, and it's to let people know it cannot be tolerated. Racism cannot be tolerated.
Okay.
Yes,
okay,
I understand what you're talking about. Hold on,
Hang on.
Well, but to
no,
clarify that point,
David, just.
I'm not trying to interject my own point. I'm saying to clarify your point. Is it
I'm
not
gonna
the same?
clarify my point.
Is it not the same thing?
I'm an old blonde.
if-
I can clarify my point.
If black people are targeting white people out of a sense of racism, is that not also racism? If they're targeting them, if a black person targets someone for robbery because they're white, is that not also racism?
I get it. You drive down 45 and you see the Black Police Officers Club. Okay, what would it look like if we had a white police officers club? I get that.
That's not what I'm saying.
But what I'm saying is that hate crimes were established so that we understand the social norms of society and what will be tolerated. And it was elevated to a point so that we no longer drive wedges between demographics. And like what Jordan was saying with the LGBTQ community, and I even kind of object to how everybody was kind of even describing that. I thought was
No, we're not politically correct.
No, you're right. I don't think it was. I think several things have not been politically correct. But what I'm saying is that if we're talking about hate crimes, there is a necessary distinction.
I pick on everybody equally.
Okay.
We're equal opportunity offenders.
Right.
Yeah.
I offend
Yeah.
everybody
Yeah.
equally.
Yeah, but it's also to bring down the groups, the gangs, and the organization. There is a method to it, and so even a blind Lady Justice can understand when a white person goes in and blows up a black church. Even blind Lady Justice gets that.
It's murder.
But
it's
do you
murder. It's
understand
murder.
that
It's murder.
every instance
But
you've
it's
named,
making a statement with that.
I know, but you're making a statement in that every single instance you've named of a racially motivated violent crime has been white on black. Every single time. You have a bias.
Well, no. I had no time to prepare because I'm sure there.
I'm just stating a fact.
If I had 5 more minutes, I would have pulled up all the facts from the Southern Poverty Law Center and talked about hate crimes.
Sure.
Or when media describes a crime as a hate crime, they don't
Who
describe
is
every.
who is the Southern Poverty Law Center biased towards? Whites? Of course not. Your bias is towards this narrative that
That's why I
whites
They
said this is
protect,
what it's go to the
no,
day.
they
I don't
protect
need-
whites, they protect Asians, they protect Hispanics, they protect
I'm just
the
pointing out the
African
fact that
American.
every single instance you've
No,
named has been white on black
Okay,
racism.
only because of the lack of time to prepare. What I'm saying
Okay.
is that when media calls something that is a racially motivated attack, it is something like Orlando or the black churches.
Yes,
or
they don't
something like
report
that.
crimes against us.
Well, can I?
We're not
Because I
victims of
think-
hate crimes.
Let me talk to him as a man. Shut the hell up.
Are you touching me? Are
Are
you touching
Hey,
me?
you're leaving it hanging. You're leaving him hanging.
Oh,
Let
sorry.
me hang it, yes.
Okay.
All right.
First off, I just want to say this: that I think what she's saying is I definitely agree with, and she's missing the boat because I think she agrees. You guys more agree. It is that she's saying as a group, and she just using one example. I'm sure she could use the opposite. So whatever that is, it could be something opposite of saying black on white. Is that to label it that is to be able to make people aware of this civil discourse against groups like the LBGQDP XYZ, because I'm not
Yes.
politically correct, never claimed
I
to
get
be,
that.
and I totally disagree with the political correct thing. Like, who makes these rules up? This is like craziness.
Where's
So,
the manual?
what she's saying is I'd have to agree, but I would disagree that it actually produces more discourse if the media jumps onto this and says it was that. It goes back to my point when
It just incites more.
it is.
But then what do you
incites
say?
more.
What do you say when someone blows up an entire gay club in Orlando? And what do you say? Oh, and they all just happen to be gay. Okay,
You
next
say-
up, tomorrow's weather.
No.
It's
No
gonna
one,
be
no one
76
disagrees,
degrees.
but no one
So-
disagrees that
no.
he did it because
So
of
hang
that.
on.
But you have to
wait.
say it. You have
Wait,
to
wait,
say
no
it.
one
Because
disagreed to
otherwise,
that.
if you don't bring it to
Hang on.
light, you can't correct it. You
Hang on.
have to say it.
Hang on, listen. Am I devaluing these people's lives by not recognizing a sexual preference? Is their life less valuable when I say they were murdered?
Yeah.
Right? The problem with the lynch laws wasn't that they were.
But it's to
Wait, hang on.
protect the
Let
LGBTQ.
me finish,
But
please.
it's to protect
hang
that
on.
group and to
Listen,
bring down
everybody.
others.
listen,
Yes.
listen. We
I'm
all.
listening.
This is
I'm listening.
there's a talking over each other thing that we've got to master here.
Yeah.
Right? Let each other finish. Right? My question in the biggest issue I have with the hate crime thing, right, is that the distinction in and of itself creates separation, right? In other words, if we are all equal, and that's what we're pushing towards, why you had a problem with, and I really felt it emotionally, right? And you go back to the KKK and the lynch laws, right?
Yes.
Right? Was not that this black person wasn't receiving justice for being black. It was that people were standing around laughing and that the law was not being followed. He was murdered unjustly and did not receive justice under the law. It had nothing to do with being black. It was the injustice that the law was not equally applied.
You
And
cannot
so-
tell me that the lynchings had nothing
So-
to do with being black.
No,
Nobody said that
no,
at
that's
all.
not.
That's
Listen,
not what he
Donna,
said.
that's
No
not
one
what I
said that at
said.
all.
That's not what I said. Obviously they were
Yeah.
done because they were
Yeah.
black, and the law wasn't applied because he was black, right? My point is that if justice were to be equal and genuinely equal, I wouldn't be punishing the people who committed the crime because they did it because he's black. I would be applying justice because they committed a murder
Against a
that-
person.
But
against
even
a
still-
Okay, but
person,
let's
and
look at
that's
that.
just.
So at that time, though,
Again,
excuse me.
Again,
that's
it's,
what
you're
we're
off,
Excuse
we
me.
have off-camera comment.
Yeah.
That's
Sorry,
right.
okay, okay.
Again,
Give
motive
me 2
equally
seconds.
applies.
Give me 2 seconds. It's because at the time that blacks weren't represented at all, just like women in domestic violence cases. women were protected under animal rights laws.
Yeah.
We
So-
didn't even
so-
have the justice.
So
you have to.
Let me ask you.
Yes.
Do you feel like
That's a specious claim.
hang on. Do you hang on? Spurious comments. Do you feel like the people who were murdered in Orlando would receive no trial? That would be they receive no investigation, anything equivalent to what a normal murder of anybody that happened anywhere in America, whether they were gay, black, Hispanic, or otherwise. Do you feel that because they were gay, that the police are now turning their other eye and they're all kind of standing around by the tree, laughing at the
Good
proverbial, lynching that took place?
No, but there are a lot of people in America that thinks they deserve that. They're sinning against God.
Whether they think that or not
The law
is
does.
justice. The law doesn't.
But those are our societal ills. That's what I'm talking about.
I don't disagree.
So the LGBTQ community comes out and says we're not going to stand for this. We're going to advocate for justice. And so that's a
And
demographic
what would justice look
trend.
like?
Justice would be for people not to have the intent and to be so motivated to
So
violate their demographic.
So I can't fix intent. There's no law that will fix intent. None. Right?
No,
Any,
No,
any,
but that's
any
why you
person
bring it
commits
up.
murder for
And
a reason.
I can't change what's in your
Yeah,
heart
everybody
ever.
does.
No.
Every
but-
person has
So-
a reason
so
for
hang
murdering
on.
somebody.
So look,
but
look,
hate crime
look.
is someone that it's a crime against a specific demographic out of hatred.
so-
that is intent.
so
it's
let me
to
ask you a
reduce the
question.
hatred.
Well,
Look,
let me back
look.
up a second,
Yeah.
Joe.
Again,
Hold on, but there's
we'll
a
never
big
fix
point here.
hatred in the heart,
Right,
never.
there's a big point here that you're missing in that specific instance you keep citing over and over again. And the whole reason that all America was outraged, I don't know, I've heard this accusation over and over again that certain people in America were happy. I mean, if you're just talking about the crazy loons at whatever that so-called Baptist church is, I don't even want to name their name.
West-
You know
yeah,
what I'm talking
the-
about.
the West
I don't want to
people.
give them the,
Right.
the time of day.
Yeah.
Because that doesn't represent Christianity.
Nor does it
okay?
represent America.
Just because I say, and I fully agree, that homosexuality is a sin. Just like having sex outside of marriage is sin. Just like thievery is a sin. Just like there's all kinds of other sin. That doesn't mean I would ever condone the murder of people just because they're sinning. And the thing that united all of America, that everybody put on the Orlando hashtag, is because that was a terrorist attack. That was a Muslim terrorist attack that attacked a group of people because they weren't them. Has nothing. That's hatred, but it's not the hatred you're trying to talk about, like it was persecution based on the fact they're gay. It has to do with they were killed
but Muslims
because
also believe that
Can I-
they're sinning
can I
against
finish my
God.
point?
Yes.
those people were murdered in mass execution style because they weren't Muslim. That's what it boils down to. It was a Muslim terrorist act. Just like if any Muslim terrorist busted into here, they'd want to kill every single one of us who's not Muslim. There's no distinction between them. So everyone could get on board with that. It wasn't about their identity as being gay people.
Well,
Their
let me-
their value is intrinsic to the fact that they're human beings.
So, but which I get that point. My question beyond that is, right? Let's say that we determine that there's first-degree murder, and that's there's things that involve premeditation, planning, all this stuff, right? So it doesn't matter, black, white, gay, or otherwise. If I equally apply the law justly to all people, all humans, black, white, gay, or otherwise, right? Equally applied. If it's not equally applied, I'm right there with you. I'm rallying, right? This guy was gay and he got murdered, and his murder only got
And you
15.
don't believe that doesn't happen
right?
in our
Right?
criminal
Hang on.
justice
So,
system?
hang on. Right.
Okay.
Hang on. Separate issue.
Yeah.
Right? I said I'm right there with you at that point going, we got to fix that because then justice hasn't been equally applied. Right? But the point that I'm making is that it has nothing to do with making distinctions based on race, sexuality, or otherwise, because now as soon as I do that, I'm creating lesser than, difference, and all these sort of things. Why can't we all be equally human and the law all be equally applied, period?
Okay, let me
Right? So
say
that
something
justice
real quick,
really
too.
prevails
Go,
in that
Bridget.
situation.
So going to both of y'all's
And we have to get some more
points,
comments. Oh my
yes.
gosh.
Yeah,
We've
yeah.
had so many good comments. I know.
We should agree to go
Why
to
does
8. Can we just
everything-
Our poor production team has put like 20
Right.
comments on the screen. These are
And there have
brilliant
been some good
comments.
ones. Yeah, they really have.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
And
this is
correct
from
me-
Eddie McDonald.
Wait,
Why does everything
no.
have to be
Let
like-
Bridget and then we're going to Eddie.
Yeah. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm taking from what y'all are saying is that every murder should be equal in a sense, because if it's not, then we're devaluing one or the other. Is that
Correct.
what I'm, okay.
Well, and you have people clamoring for their place at the table to
Okay.
go, hey, I'm a hate crime victim too.
Right.
Instead
And
of separating
I
it,
don't
you're human.
disagree with that.
You're human,
Yeah.
therefore it's a crime.
Right.
And I want to
But-
thank you right off the bat
She's been awesome.
for exercising a great principle of repeating
Debate.
back,
Debate.
the point as you understood it.
Which is, and I
That's-
did, I wanted to clarify in
That's
all fairness, I
freaking
did.
amazing.
Yeah,
Thank
very
you.
nice.
And
Yeah.
that's
First time
after
guest,
Whine.
too.
I know. Doing
See?
it better than the pros. I mean, yeah.
I'm signed up
But-
for your
Brilliant.
class.
See?
Yeah.
But I would have to disagree.
Okay.
Because, and I'll give you specific examples. I do not feel one murder is equal to another murder in a generalization. I do feel there is manslaughter, first degree murder, all of this.
Right, yeah.
Sure.
You know,
Yeah.
we had a very good friend, God bless him, his 2-year-old daughter just passed away. It was a freak accident. Someone bumped her with their car in a parking lot. Didn't run her over,
Oh.
it wasn't anything grotesque. It was literally just wrong place on the head. And, do you charge her with murder, the person behind that car? Because that was murder. She died because, if you're looking strictly factual,
Involuntary manslaughter.
It's
is what it would be.
involuntary manslaughter.
Absolutely.
I do not feel that person behind that wheel that murdered that child should get the same sentence as someone who blows up a church with, I don't care if they're white, black, Hispanic, anything.
Okay.
So I do.
Well, there's a nuance.
Hang on,
I want
hang
you to
on.
keep
There's-
talking.
Yes, and
I
I
want you
will,
to keep
I
talking,
will.
but there's
Hang
a
on,
nuance.
let her
Because
finish her point.
And again,
Murder.
correct.
She's
no, yes.
asking a question.
And
Right.
I
Yeah,
mean,
Murder.
it's
That's a
it's
very
intent.
important word.
It's intent. I'm a big person on intent. In my personal life, in society, in business, intent for me is critical. You've stated, and again, Dave, tell me if I'm wrong, that government is one of your biggest issues with calling a crime a hate crime. Or one of them. You don't trust the government, you don't want them to label it, blah, 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 and all of these reasons, which I understand completely.
Sure.
But they've also been the ones to label first degree murder, involuntary manslaughter, everything else. So, and I agree with the media point of it completely as well. Left of center, right of center, they're all out there. We know where they are. Do your due diligence, your own, research, everything else. But the fact of the matter is, there are differences, and they, for the most part, in my opinion, fall with intent. And whether it's, a freak accident or you're blowing up a church, those are two very different murders, because they both still, in my opinion, are murders. You've killed another human being. That is a murder to
Okay,
me.
so before you respond, I
No, I'm listening.
want to say, first of all, again, freaking brilliantly stated.
Thank you.
Well done. Exemplifying what the show's about.
Thank you.
Kudos.
MVP.
Yeah.
do I win?
And so
I don't know.
I want to say,
T-shirt.
just
All right.
since it was a question kind of posed to us.
Yes.
All right. I would say, give me a kind of a 1-minute response. To
I don't
that.
even need that. It's
Okay,
not-
and I'll give you a 1-minute
Okay.
response to that, and I want to get like 1 or 2 more comments, and we're already over, but we'll wrap the
Yeah.
show,
Okay.
closing thoughts, and that sort of thing.
The important distinction there is when you say murder, because murder means the unjustified killing of a human being. Now, that's why we have degrees of murder, which you go to manslaughter, which means it's not intentional, right?
Right.
It was an accident.
Right.
Right? This is not what happened to the 2-year-old, tragic as it is, was an accident, as opposed to a church, which that takes planning and
Right.
intent, and right. So there's all kinds of degrees to that. But the point is that, again, I come back to, because I don't want to go down a legal rabbit trail. We're all lay people that aren't attorneys anyway,
Right.
But the point is that there's a legal distinction there that happens where, again, motive is important to consider in terms of whether the person committed the crime. Did they have a motive, right? So like take that incident of the accidental death of the 2-year-old. Now, if that had been an incident where a person of one race saw a 2-year-old of another race, and there's like they've had manifestos that they publish saying, I think all of this person, people of this race should die. And then there's some question: was that really an accident? Right? That can go
the 2-year-old was African American.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Though I was assuming that, but
Yes.
my point is that Now there's some evidence that you can go to say, hold on, this may not have been an accident. But the punishment still remains the same.
Right.
If someone kills me because they want my wallet, does it make a difference if they kill me because they want my wallet, or if they kill me because I'm white? I'm still dead. I'm still 6 feet under anyway. They don't bury me deeper because it was racism. You know, the punishment should still be the same. That's my answer.
Yeah, I will go super short, right? For me, as soon as you establish that it was an intent based on race, color, creed, whatever, anything else, now you have intent, and the charge changes, and it accelerates.
But you
right?
disagree that it should be hate crime.
Right, absolutely.
But why?
Because yeah, it's already
intent
first of all, because I want to eliminate inequality, and by labeling something a hate crime based on, and insert the category race, sex, or otherwise, we're creating distinctions. That goes back to the whole separate but equal thing.
Yeah, and now you open up the question of whether everyone's being treated equally in that distinction.
But if I murder someone out of self-defense...
But that's now I can apply that equally based on nothing to do with race or otherwise. I can just, it doesn't, right? I just apply all of it equally, right? So in other words, I don't need to know if the child was black and the guy was white.
Right.
None of that, right? As to Dave's point, if there was a manifesto where he was writing beforehand, I'm going to go out and back out and kill every black kid I can. Well, that's premeditation, right? And so the charge changes regardless of his color and her color, or the child's color, right? So that's applied equally.
I see what you're saying.
It's applied equally across the board to all, right? And so as soon as I label something a hate crime, I'm making a distinction based on something I'm trying to eliminate. I'm trying to get rid of the distinction. I just want us all to be human and all to be treated equally.
That's a good point, Joe.
And how that's eliminated is by highlighting hate crimes, where society can look at that and learn something, and also then have the dissolution of groups, gangs, and organizations, that is their main feed, is to go out and hate and anger and to perpetrate violence on specific demographics. And so what that shows, so that is about eliminating hate. The whole thing about a hate crime is to eliminate hate. That's why they call it a hate crime. They're showing...
I really want to get to some comments, but I love the point you're making.
Okay.
I do. I'm like, this is like a concession, right? Right? There's an aspect. Yeah, right. There's an aspect to what you're saying that I'm hearing your heart in what you're saying.
Yeah,
right?
agreed.
Right?
I agree with that.
And for me, like, this is like if we can find some way to meet in the middle, so to speak, right? I'm like, I want to apply the law equally, blindly to color, sex, and anything else. I want it to be equal and equally just, etc. Right? And for you, if I'm understanding you right, your point is like we apply this title in the punishment in order to highlight this social ill, yes. Right? So that it can really force society to deal with it, right? And so I'm like, that's actually, it's really, I get that angle and the value of that angle. For me, I'm like, great intent, not so good execution. That's kind of where I'm coming from, right?
The empirical evidence shows what's happening. Everyone's starting to vibe because I'm not getting equal treatment under this premise.
Right.
What's happening.
So and so it opens a different can of worms. So kind of where I'm coming from is like, if I just want to apply the law equally, blindly to, I don't care if you're black, gay, whatever, I don't care. Were you murdered? Yes, no, right? Was there intent? Yes, no.
Was
it
an
accident? Yeah, exactly. Were you human? Right? And then, almost like separately, if we had, like, from a cause standpoint or whatever, like, just societally saying, look, this many crimes happened, this many murders happened this year because of a Muslim hating homosexuals, because of whatever the basis was, right? Not trying to illustrate one or the other one.
Whoever.
But from a cause standpoint, to bring that out societally, I'd be 100% on board with that. Let's like march. We'll all, have our banners together and high five and, all that sort of thing. But I feel like when we start applying the laws and the punishments differently, we're actually creating more of this unequal treatment based
That's
on.
right. Is to say, if you go out and you perpetrate against a specific demographic, it's going to be harsher for you because you have such anger and hate in your heart. And so you're going out and trying to perpetrate against a demographic just because they exist. just because they're black, just because they're Asian, just because they're gay.
Is their life more
Okay.
valuable because they are gay?
Yeah.
No, but it is to highlight that. Okay, so if we're not talking about hate crimes, and let's say gays are being knocked off right and left, okay, and we just say, okay, this person was shot today, this person was shot today, so what's the common denominator? Oh wow, the last 20 murders were all gay, or they were all Asian, okay. So that's to let people know that these people are valuable. They are to be protected. You can't go out and perpetrate just against a specific demographic because you have a problem with it. And so you can't take the law in
Would you
your
say
hands.
is that like everybody's agreeing with this person who did it, and that's not accurate?
Yeah.
I'll tell you. Can I use just an example?
Sure.
So I'll
Randall,
take
chime in, we
it.
gotta
I'll take it
comment.
because I want to see.
Randall.
There's a couple of great.
Important
We got a
question.
boatload of comments.
I know, we need
The
to read it.
production
So-
crew is driving home their point
they
that
got
we have
to-
lots of comments because we have like 20.
This
on
This is a
screen.
great episode.
Good.
If you take, I think what Joe's saying and what you're saying is really agreeing. Joe's saying this. Joe's saying is if you say, well, this guy killed this guy or this gal killed this person because of a specific thing,
He hates
then
El
they
Papas.
should get more punishment than the person who killed my son Joe, who wasn't those things.
Yeah.
you
That
devalued
is not
me.
equally
Right.
applying. So
That's what
I
I'm
take
saying.
it back
You
to
devalued.
if you grew up with brothers and sisters, and you're a parent. Now I only have an only child, but I remember my mom saying like she's going to punish you equally, not just because you're the boy or you're the girl. If you do this, you pay the same crime, the same punishment is applied to you, regardless of why you did it. To Joe's point is saying,
But we're not getting.
Hang on.
Joe's point meaning, I get what you're saying. You're saying I want to have some way to show society
this group.
that this group is being perpetrated
Right.
more than this other group, and there's ways that they already do that.
Okay.
But the punishment shouldn't be any different. Do you think about if you had a child and that child was murdered and the person who killed them, killed them and they got
Death plus 20 years.
death plus 20, whatever they do, right? Well, but this other person, because of that, they got the death penalty and they're going to die,
Death plus
40
30 years.
whatever it is.
Not always
It's like that is
possible.
not equally like murder. They're dead. There's somebody killed them. Because obviously I don't like something about that person because I killed them.
Right.
There has to be something in there that I killed them if I did it premeditated, because that's what
Right,
we're
that's
talking
the
about in that realm.
And it
We're
may
not
be
talking
far
about
more
accidents.
nuanced than the fact that
We're
just
talking
belong to
about
this one certain group.
Randall thought about it, and then, or whoever it was thought about it, and went out to the school or went wherever, and they thought about, and I'm going to kill him because I don't like because she's cheating on me.
And I'll ask
kill him.
I'll ask a
Okay.
rhetorical question.
All right.
Let me ask a rhetorical question real quick.
I had a comment.
We got to get to the comment feed.
Okay.
I know there's
What
so
I'm
many
saying-
great.
What I'm saying is
return
that
comments.
we have an erroneous assumption here in our conversation that just because the definition is that they're punished harsher, we have an erroneous assumption that if somebody is being sentenced because of a hate crime, that theirs is necessarily more than if your son was murdered. We don't really know what those stats are. There could be some hate crimes that they get 6 months, whereas somebody that does the same crime to somebody else at another time and with
That's
a
a
different
good point.
attorney,
That's a good point.
they might get 10 years.
Well, then why
So-
do you want to collect it?
so-
You just want to collect information then? Is that it? You don't want them to be punished anymore? That was my understanding.
What is the purpose to the hate
Yeah.
crime push you have?
So,
No.
to clarify the question.
Well, it's not really the push that I have. It's
Or just
the
whoever.
push that's out there.
Well,
And
your
it's-
personal
and
opinion.
how it's-
Your
But I'm
personal
saying
opinion, 'cause
that
you can't answer for them.
that we do not know. First of all, we do not know how many hate crimes and what the sentencings of the hate crimes were in accordance with similar crimes perpetrated against other human beings. We don't have that data during this conversation. So we're making a lot of parallels, saying that, well, they're getting harsher when this is really, the harsher situation. I'm just saying the definition is that people that have hate in their heart and they have violence against a specific demographic are going to be more aggressively adjudicated. So.
More aggressively than what? That's what I'm trying to get to. More aggressively than what? If you were killed, what do you want to be done to a person that killed you because you're white, as opposed to a person who just killed you?
Or just
Well,
a hate
it's the
crime. It
act
doesn't
of
have to be white.
violence. Okay, so let's just take Sam Shepard. Okay, so yeah, I can go out and kill somebody else, but then I kill somebody and I put them up on a stake on a barbed wire fence where he looks like a scarecrow to passers-by, and it's an actual human being.
Do you not know that
Yeah.
all that gets figured into the sentencing when they consider the case? The facts of the case already figured into the sentencing. If it's that heinous, I mean, Jeffrey Dahmer got the sentence he got because of the
But it's the
heinousness
message
nature.
to society, and it's the message. to
Everything's a
people that
message to
perpetrate.
society. If you go around kidnapping kids and you start eating them and storing them in your freezer, there's a message to society that's delivered in the sentence that when you sentence them to the death penalty or a quadruple life sentence or whatever it is. The question that we're trying to ask is, because you've repeatedly named the same phrase over and over again, right? Is this certain demographic? Well, look at what's happened over the last 30 or 40 years. The number of things that we're attempting as a society to call the demographic is multiplying. You know, it used to just be, you know, by race. Now it's by sexual preference. You know, it's not going to be long, mark my words, it's not going to be long until we have it based on, you know,
I like
proclivities,
tacos.
right? Or your, Icelandic
I like
tacos,
tacos,
right?
Icelandic
I like
tacos.
I like Icelandic tacos. That goes back to a season 1 episode.
It's an old
they did.
joke, yes.
Right.
Right. I'm being
but the
murdered
point is,
because I like Icelandic tacos.
when the government institutes a principle, because we're a nation based on the rule of law, right? That sets a precedent. Now, every little group is going to be clamoring for their seat at the table to be counted as among this persecuted group so they can get more hate crime legislation for their particular self-interest, to a point Randall's made repeatedly in the past. The point is, why do you complicate it so much? You're human. He's human. We're all human. If one of us is murdered, there should be some very stiff penalties that which we, by state, can determine what that is. And you know what? I'm all for it. If someone murders you, they should die. I'm a very pro advocate for the death penalty.
There's obviously a reason why they killed you.
And I don't care
Was
what
it for
color
love?
you are. I don't care what
killed you 'cause
activity.
I love you.
I don't care what activity you engaged
so
in.
pretty.
I don't care if you're a whiskey person and not a wine person. I don't care. If they killed you and you're a human being, die. I'm for public execution. Hang them in the public square. That makes a statement to society. On that point, we agree.
Actually, I do agree with that.
Okay, so claim the right there.
Okay, I want to get to some comments.
Okay,
Public
there. I'll shut up on that
executions,
point. She agreed with one point. I'm good.
All right.
Praise Jesus.
Yeah. Julia Marie has a question.
Hey, David, you're fun.
And Julia has a question that really gets
You
to
as
you
well.
and me.
Okay.
You voiced it, but I say it all the time.
Is this live now? Is it
Yeah,
live?
yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Literally, like
I
This
love
is
how you're asking for
this is
now.
awesome, by the way. This is awesome. Thank you guys for all these comments.
Yeah,
It's awesome.
literally being seen by thousands of people. So Julia Marie asked a question. She said, I have a question. If you guys don't trust the government to classify crimes from hate crimes for us, why do you trust them to accurately define statistics?
So I'll be very quick with that.
Oh, yeah.
And can we go around? Can everyone, if y'all want to chime in, let's do that. Julia, because listen, first of all, clinkable moment for the question.
Yes.
Clinkable.
Yes.
I'm going to clink
Yes.
you. Clink.
Yes.
Okay.
Julia, I will say, Julia, first of all, I felt like the question's directed almost at me because I don't trust the government all the time, but I cite government statistics. So I said that
The
question.
FBI.
I said that question despite feeling like it was directed at me because I felt like it was a great question.
Yeah, and I think we probably all felt like it was directed at us because it is a great question.
I
but-
trust the government.
So Julia, here's the thing. Yeah, I bet you do.
They're watching me.
Yes.
Totally.
So Julia, very quickly.
IRS, don't audit me, please.
Too late. Too late.
I
You
love
told me
you.
something to hide, man.
I love you.
I love you, man.
I mailed you a check, a donation.
It is the end of the
Okay. So we're already going long. So
Yes.
here's the thing.
Yeah.
Julia, great question. I don't trust the government to classify crimes, and to the point that we as a society start to not regard and revere truth. That's where what you're pointing to in your question can absolutely come to pass. Right now, what we have is we have something called a crime victim survey, right? Where the victims of the crime, what that means is that I'm a victim of a crime. They didn't catch the person who did it. We don't know. But I provide a description of the person that I saw who did whatever they did to me, right? So for you to not believe those statistics, you would have to believe that I have an agenda that is so deeply entrenched in me that I'm willing to lie about the person who did whatever they did to me, right? About the statistics, about what gender they were, what race they were, how tall they were, what weight they were, anything else. So, but is it getting to the point? I mean, I'll say this, little caveat. Look at the unemployment numbers. Our government lies to us on a daily basis when they give us the unemployment numbers. It's very, let's be polite, it's very creative accounting, okay? It's not the true representation of the amount of Americans, the number of Americans who are actually able to work, who are at work. It's a political number. And to the degree that we as a society, good wine, we as a society start to not revere truth, right? That's going to happen. What you're saying right now is it will get to a point that they won't care about being truthful with statistics. And I'll acknowledge even this point. We may have even crossed that threshold already. We don't know. All we can do is act on our best information. So that is a fantastic question.
It's a fantastic question. I will give my response because I very frequently assert that I don't trust government any further than I can throw them. Right? Here's how I'll answer that question for you, Julia. It's not that I don't trust the statistics or the numbers that are being reported. It's the spin on those numbers. That's where I start distrusting the government. When it starts coming out of the politician's mouth who's running for office and he's putting the spin on hate crime and etc., I immediately go to distrust. I can go back and look at the FBI data, the stats, that are much more just about the tickers of what crime happened, where and when, and who committed it, and it's just logged data. I can look at that for myself responsibly. Most people, unfortunately, don't. They read a headline on the Facebook feed, and that's where they get their data, right? It's reported by CNN, it's reported by Fox, and we have serious confirmation bias. Serious confirmation bias. If you want to believe that all murders are only happening because the guys like Icelandic tacos, you'll find a freaking article that's going to validate that for you, and off you go, right? But for me, I'm going back to the actual data, and I'm analyzing it myself and drawing my own conclusions, not from the mouths of the politicians. That's how I handled that situation. So.
Calvin Weaver's got
Calvin's got a couple great points, and Calvin used to be our Hofbrau sponsor.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
So that everyone gets a chance?
Sure.
Why don't someone read it and let them
react to it?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Because
Sure.
I know I've talked a lot. I know that.
No,
I'm guilty.
I do too.
Yeah.
I don't apologize.
No. That's
Oh no, that's the point.
that's the beauty of the show. That's the beauty of the show.
People come in here.
So
Yeah,
before, Eddie McDonald had a question up there saying, why should everything be labeled?
We have like 40 comments on the
Yeah,
screen.
there have been a bunch.
Our poor production crew is trying to keep up.
Which bravo.
Which is
Yes.
bravo. You guys have like I already know. Like I go like
Are we supposed to answer that question?
Yeah, you answer it.
If you want to.
Saturdays, I address all the comments. It takes me like 3-4 hours to go through all the freaking comments.
Gosh.
Yeah, but I address every comment on the comment feed. I encourage you guys to go back to the comment feed
I
and
bet you're
chime in.
at 6 or 7 hours this time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I am certain there's a lot of great comments on the comment feed.
I actually think
So,
that
I don't
this is
know,
a
if-
really good show, and I think we're really great for your ratings.
Oh, that's great.
Coming up on the Instagram special after this show.
Yeah, right?
Donna and I will oil wrestle in Crisco or something. I don't know.
Yeah, mud wrestling. Yeah, winner takes all.
And I will lose, I promise.
So if our production can, I'll wait for the Eddie comment. If our production crew can find the Eddie comment to throw back up
I
there.
think she
No, it's just one
that's what I-
sentence. It was one sentence.
Oh, it was one sentence. Okay.
Yeah,
What was it?
yeah, you did it. You did it.
Eddie.
Eddie McDonald said,
McDonald,
"Why
okay.
should everything be labeled? Why are we labeling things?"
Right.
And
So what's your take on that?
So my
'Cause-
response was we have to label things.
Why?
That's how people are able to understand it. There's a reason why our telephone number is, bum bum bum, bum bum bum, bum 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 bum. Because that's how we have. That's a learning mechanism in us.
They had to
We
follow her through the
label
bump
things.
bumps. I'm like,
Okay.
We used to not have the
I know her phone number now by the tone she was singing. I have the
There it is. Why does everything have to be labeled?
Yeah.
That was great. Okay, that was great. Okay, that was great.
Eddie McDonald.
Okay,
Yeah, all right.
All right. And so
Why does it have to
the
be
thing
labeled?
is that things have to be labeled for people to understand. Most Americans read at a 6th grade level. A
So murder's
third,
simple.
a 3rd to 6th grade level. So you have to kind of quantify things and label things just so people have an area to understand. Just as with murder, there's manslaughter, there's
First degree
murder, second degree murder. So it is to create understanding, and that's why a hate crime helps to create an understanding among groups of demographics, so that people understand what is appropriate in society.
So
I'm
I'm an advocate for labels too. I agree with you in that regard.
I advocate against labels.
The big label I agree is
Hypocrites.
human. Human.
All right. So here's my
How
whole
about
response.
hypocrite?
Here's my whole response.
I'm a hypocrite. I agree.
Here's my whole response, and then we're gonna go to another comment.
Well, another
All right.
label's
I'm
radio show, podcast. That's
Murder.
Yeah.
One word. Hate crime. 2 words. Keep it simple.
Yes.
What was that?
Hate crime.
Right.
What?
Right. So we're going to Jordan's comments. He's directed at me, but I want you to handle it, Bridget.
Oh,
Yeah.
where am I?
Come on, Bridget.
Which one?
You
You got this.
He has
well,
it behind me.
yeah.
I would imagine.
Yeah.
Go, Bridget, go.
Joe
Go,
Orsak. I don't
Bridget.
think.
Oh, Joe Orsak. I don't think it's saying some people are different. I think it's about taking the intentions and actions of the aggressor and punishing that discrimination.
Yes.
Jordan, I love
Yes.
you. I
Yes.
don't know where
Yes.
you are.
Yes.
But
Minnesota?
Yes.
Minnesota.
Minnesota.
Don't you know?
Minnesota.
Don't you know?
I think Joe said.
Yeah.
Where?
North Dallas.
Just
Dallas.
just north of Dallas.
Jordan
Yeah.
needs to come here.
It's just north of Dallas.
I
Jordan
think,
should be a guest.
yes.
And again, Jordan, I'm gonna have to shoot you down, brother.
Shocker.
Gently though. Be careful. Be careful. Yeah. Be careful. Make sure he's not
Don't
under
say
protected
shoot.
group.
As soon as you punish me based on that distinction, you have devalued all the others that you don't punish equally.
That's right.
Period. Exclamation. Question mark. Exclamation.
Because they're still dead. That's the thing you keep ignoring. That
Right.
someone
Yeah.
killed
The
someone,
punishment
regardless
should
of why
be
they killed them.
equal.
You mean it doesn't make it better if we put another
I
band-aid
know it's
on the
not. I'm
corpse?
saying that's unjust.
It's just ridiculous to
It's
even,
unjust.
to even assert that.
But do you think it should
Because
be
you
different
killed
if I
someone.
But wait,
kill
I'm going to put
someone
3 band-aids
out
on the
of
corpse.
self-defense?
Of course.
they're
And that
dead.
should be equally applied, whether you're gay, white, black, or otherwise.
Hey, I want you to
Yeah.
acknowledge something,
But-
that this is a crazy thing that's happening right now.
I know.
Randall and
I know.
Yes.
have
I almost
agreed,
didn't
man.
want to comment on it. I was afraid to
Yeah.
acknowledge it. They never agree on anything.
Oh,
Yeah, they're like,
really?
Yeah.
they come to
We're-
fisticuffs.
we're
So,
brothers
We brought
separated at
them
birth.
together.
Yeah.
He just
Brought
doesn't
them
want to agree with
together.
me. I think
I
that's the
agree
motivation.
with some of the stuff you
I
said.
think
You
it's.
just didn't hear it.
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
I did. I
I
took
did.
Yeah.
note. I
I
took
mean,
note.
I think we
Right
do
here.
agree.
Right here.
That
I took-
one-liner.
There's
She meant no.
Still remember that.
there's
Remember you
points.
wearing that green shirt?
And Jordan, and I'm throwing it out to anybody because I feel very confident in this argument. I really do, right?
Bring
You're
it.
like, I will put it out there for anybody. As soon as you punish somebody differently based on any category, you have devalued all the others in the process. You have said they are less than, less equal,
But-
right?
I see where you're coming from. I do.
Right.
And I don't even.
I
I
haven't.
think
I've
that's
never
a
heard
gross
an argument against
generalization
it.
that you've
Well,
devalued
I
everybody.
don't necessarily even disagree, though.
As soon as you punish somebody differently, they're less valuable.
Yeah, but I think it all again goes back, and as Jordan's very eloquently put for Donna and I, it's intent, and that's where it. I totally see what you're saying, and again, I don't even disagree.
supposed to whine.
But
I don't
if
drink
someone
that.
intentionally
No, just one,
murders
that's all.
someone strictly because of their race, sexual orientation, or whatever, I do think that's different. Just like we've got a level of manslaughter, involuntary manslaughter, and first-degree murder. It goes to intent. And if you've accidentally, killed a child, that's involuntary manslaughter. If you've gone and hacked up a family, then that's first-degree murder. If,
Okay, so we're trying to exercise.
Hang on, she's directed at me.
She's got
Yeah.
a rule. She's
Okay,
gonna
but I
rule.
might have a better argument than you.
Okay.
You haven't heard it yet.
I have a question. It's
That
a
is an
rubber.
erroneous assumption.
It's a rubber meets the road kind of thing, and I'm going to ask all of you guys. Okay, I'll assume moderator from the
I
chair
think she
over
was
here.
still
Right. I'm
Real
like,
quick.
I
She was
want
still
Real
trying to
quick.
finish.
Did you finish the question?
That's pretty much it. I
Yeah,
mean,
real quick.
Okay.
So rubber meets the road.
Okay.
A guy who's gay gets murdered by, and let's assume all the typical stereotypes: a white male Christian who says it's a sin and therefore he needs to die. Okay, as opposed to Joe Schmo was walking down the street and he got robbed and they took his wallet and they cut his throat and left. Right. What would be the different distinction?
You're saying
What would
why
be
is
the
that
punishment?
person's
What
life less?
you're on the jury. What would be the punishment you would prescribe? This is like a variation
Well-
of your argument about you're president. What do you do about this, right? So you're on the jury. What punishment would you prescribe for A versus B?
Well, I also am a fan of death penalty. So,
I know I liked you.
I know. So, honestly, it would be the same for both, which proves...
But don't you feel like it gives a different face to it,
I
though?
think the-
Because then
yes.
people think, because people are for their cause. Okay, so they're thinking, you know what? If he went out and did that, I want to do it because that's what I believe too.
And that's,
Okay.
I agree with
Okay.
you.
It goes
Okay.
with what I'm saying.
And-
They're
Whoa,
gonna
whoa, whoa, whoa.
Do you hear that?
Whoa, 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 whoa.
Y'all agree?
Did you write that down?
I missed it. What's
I
happening?
I think you
agree
needed a
with
page.
you.
I think you need a page for
But
that.
that
Right.
fact comes out in the case. It doesn't have to be prosecuted differently. It simply gets established as
Dependent
motive.
on the attorney being worth his salt.
That's saying it's
So-
okay to go
so
out
what
to
I'm
Destiny
saying
Day.
is-
So you're wanting
wait,
a perfect
so-
judicial
No,
system
what
that
I'm saying is
Hang on,
it
everybody's
gives
talking.
a different face. I'm saying it gives a different face to it. And that just because you feel convicted in your beliefs, you still can't go out and shoot at people, set fire to churches, lynch people. You cannot do that just because you feel committed to that cause.
So would you have a different punishment
Right.
for A versus B?
No,
Right,
because
right.
it's
Question.
about the message to
Wait,
society.
But wait, no.
That's the question.
Right, I agree with you, like a big time on the message to society.
And I agree with you
Right,
too.
right.
That's the
Okay.
thing. I
Right.
agree with you.
We're finding a zone here, right?
Yes.
But it
The
almost-
real issue.
They almost have to make it a worse punishment so people won't do
No,
it.
that's
No,
Okay,
that's-
so
that's
and
where-
that's
that's
what
where-
happens.
that's
I know,
where we-
I know,
that's where we-
okay.
that's where
Randall,
we
what do you
disagree.
say to that? Is it a different punishment?
I mean, I think I've clearly stated it that you can't. You can't tell. You know, I'll take it back to family life because it takes a little bit of the emotion out and puts a little fun back into it. I had two sisters, and if
You lost all the time.
I lost all, and I'm the oldest, and I felt sometimes that I got punished harsher because number one, I was a male.
Yeah.
Welcome
And
to your
number
male
two,
privilege.
I was the oldest for the exact same crime, and humans are all about fairness, right?
Right.
They even tested it in animals. That animals even seen this element of fairness. Like it's not fair. Like if I just walked up to Joe and I gave Joe $100, or just randomly said, "Here you go," but then I gave you $1,000, he'd be mad because I didn't give him $1,000. Like why? It's my money. Why do you
Right.
care?
But nothing's fair. Nothing's fair.
Mm-hmm.
Well, wait a minute. Well, you're shooting for that because
Hang on.
you're.
We are shooting
No,
for fair.
I'm-
Hang
I'm-
on.
Well,
Finish
I'm
point.
saying
Finish
that
point. Finish point.
once someone is left this world and they're dead at the hands of someone else,
Who
they
murdered
always-
them?
And we're talking about the not the accident, not all of the other stuff, crimes of passion, because there's sometimes that does happen.
And the law addresses
And
it.
I'm all addresses all those. I'm saying those people, the premeditation they actually thought about, and they went to a school, or they thought about, and they were going to murder their wife's or husband's lover, and they thought about it. That person should be treated exactly the same as the person who did it because they were gay or whatever, whatever you consider to be a hate crime.
Okay, so Jordan had a
Exactly the
comment
same.
that actually
So
I
many
think
good
is
comments.
very there's a bunch, but he made a comment to argue against my narrative, and I'm just going to highlight the comment. He said, "I don't think it's saying some people are different. I think it's about taking the intentions and actions of the aggressor and punishing that discrimination." Now that's a valid point.
That
So
is.
what do you say
That's
to
what
that,
we've been
Joe?
saying.
So
That's what
here's
we've been saying.
yeah. So, listen. So the point in which
what we've
we
been saying.
all become in agreement is saying that we do want to highlight this societal ill.
Yeah.
Where we differentiate is when we say we're going to punish more or less, right? So as soon as I say your son was killed because he loves alpacas, right? He's an alpaca
But see,
fan.
that diminishes the value.
Well, just hear the example.
That's
Let
making
him
it
finish.
frivolous,
Yeah.
really.
Hang on.
You know,
I-
Icelandic tacos and all that. That doesn't compare with hate crimes.
Well, what about one
hang on.
And
Honestly, I take offense with that. I'll
Okay.
tell you why.
Okay.
All right. I'm using a frivolous argument so that we don't get in the weeds on some particular category. If I say it's a black person, now all of a sudden we all were just focused on is a racial issue. If I said it was a gay person, now we're all just focused on a gay issue. I'm saying Icelandic tacos because it's absurd and it's
There's no one here.
There's no one here that likes Icelandic.
Right.
There's no such thing as Icelandic tacos. So it just becomes an objective outside thing that we can all consider equally without a bias.
Okay.
Right. So that's the point. All right. So my
Joe,
point is,
calm down.
hey, I can get passionate.
Oui.
So we have been drinking French wine. I mean,
Give me a passionate one, yeah.
My favorite cartoon character. Peppa the Pew.
Civility.
Okay.
Let's go out the window.
Cats.
see, we are having fun, people. All right.
Yes.
So my point is that as soon as we make the distinction, right, that your son was killed because he likes alpacas or Icelandic tacos or whatever else, now any punishment that I prescribe to his life that is not the same for taking his life by anybody else, I have devalued your son's life over other people.
Well, and
Right?
let me
Yeah,
add a
hang on,
facet.
hang on.
Hold on, I want to add a facet to that real quick. Hold on, just because I don't want to derail him. I want to add a facet to that real quick because there's an important human element here. You have now opened it up to human perception also. Every time you make things more complicated, you open things up to the perception that, oh my gosh, this guy got the person that killed this guy because he was this, he liked alpacas. Now, why am I less?
Because I don't
That's
like
human
alpacas.
perception. That's
Right.
what you're opening up. You're
So-
catering to that and opening up that problem.
I want to finish up my argument in my response to Jordan to say, if the law was equally blindly applied, right, we would in essence have, I'm super making this, like very cut down, right? I would say a life that was taken premeditated is worth the death penalty. Period. Hang on, let me finish. All right,
Raise my hand.
all right, I'll go to you.
Yeah, but they can't see your face.
Hang on. Yes. So a life that was unjustly
better than this
taken, that's murder and that's a death penalty. All right. A life that was taken by backing up in a car and hitting them it wasn't premeditated. Right. That's worth 20 years in prison. Right. And we go down the line with the premeditation. The degree of it, all this sort of. Now, not only did I kill you, I cut you up in little pieces, I stuck your head on a pole, whatever, I ate your arm, all that kind of stuff. That's third-degree penalty. I mean, now you're going to be, tortured by listening to Britney Spears music, and then we're going to kill you.
Now that's cruel and unusual punishment. Right there.
Wait a minute.
Whatever.
I love Britney. Don't even go here.
I knew there's something I didn't like about you.
I tried to find obscure references, but I went too mainstream. I'm sorry. I should have stuck to Icelandic tacos.
Yes.
Damn it, Joe, you're the moderator.
Right. So my point is that if the law is to be justly and blindly applied, it should be justly and blindly applied regardless of any freaking category you give me. Any category. And if there's premeditation, whatever else, then that gets equally applied. And if there was accidental, that gets equally applied. Right? And as soon as you tell me you were murdered because you like alpacas and I'm going to give you 5 more years or whatever else, I've devalued everybody else's life who was taken by 5 years. So there we go. That's how I answer that question, Jordan.
It's
Go ahead.
not defined. A hate crime is not defined by the demographic. It's defined by the hate. And what is being punished greater is the level of hate. That's why it's a hate crime.
So how
If
many
I sh- if I
black
should-
on white
I'm
rapes
sorry,
have there
I'm
been
sorry.
that you
Hold on.
support there being
I'm
hate
not
crimes?
finished.
Hang on, let him finish. Let him finish.
David, I'm
Let him
not
finish.
finished.
Go ahead.
Okay.
She give me the hand.
So if I
Should have high-fived.
Oh, that's what it was? Okay. I want to make sure. Here, high five.
I'm not finished, David.
I'm sorry. I misunderstood.
I'm so going to
So
do
what
that.
I'm
If that ever
hearing you
happens.
say is you didn't mean to make it fun of my life. You You just forgot that I didn't. I was trying
right,
to
right.
Hang it.
Okay.
I am not finished, David.
I was exercising my male privilege.
Oh, that's great. Oh, we
My
were
white male privilege.
Listen,
No,
listen.
I'm sorry. Wait, you forgot I'm black.
Listen, I'm going to let her wrap up the point, and we're going to take the show home at this point.
Okay.
And there's so many other comments.
It's literally
I
a
know.
2-hour
I
show
know.
right now. So she's going to wrap
Okay,
up, and then we're going
so
to give the wine rating.
You all comment on this team that we've put together here to talk about other issues.
We rock.
Because we totally rock. The grape rating.
Yes.
Okay. And so, so what we are saying here today is, what we're debating here today is, should hate crimes be punished more than crimes? I'm saying in particular is that if I go rob a Quick Trip store, I don't have a level of hate against that person behind there. I'm just robbing the store and I kill the guy and I turn around and somebody sees my face and I kill them too because I don't want them to identify me and I go out the store.
She shot
But
that Pipkin in the parking lot.
if I am
was good.
going to all of the Quick Trips where there is a certain ethnicity and I'm going around and I'm killing all of those, that is a hate crime. Okay? What we are, so a hate crime is a crime that has a motivated bias against a certain demographic through excessive violence, like shooting up an entire club, like shooting at people in a church. It has to do with the demographic, the level of hate, and that is a severe punishment because we're not going to tolerate hate in our society. We are going to highlight our societal ills, and we're going to strive to get along.
Okay. Randall, closing thoughts, 1 minute or less.
Well, I think that people care more about animals than humans.
Wow.
I agree with that.
They'll want to kill somebody. You know, we've already seen it. They're calling for people to be death penalty. So it goes back to my original point in the very beginning when I said we are all emotional creatures. And whenever you insert emotion, which is what David's kind of saying, is when you put when you give the ability to put emotion into a judicial process, and I'm not a lawyer, so it may be the wrong place to put that, but that's not a great place to put. Like, who gets to decide what hate is? Like, how do you define hate? Like, there has to be a definition so that when they go in the jury room, that everybody there can have the unbiased about what they think hate is. That they hate that you kill dogs, or they hate, or whatever that hate is. It's very hard to define that, but it's easy to define premeditation. That is easier to define for a jury, because you're asking a jury to do these.
Because it's based on action.
But to her
The
point,
operative word was quick.
But her point,
Yeah.
but her point is
1 minute or less.
I'm still under a minute. I'm watching the clock. There it goes. You took it up.
Show us the clock. Show us the
I
clock.
watched it. It was right there.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say to her point
You're
though.
reading.
But how do you,
We'll get there.
can you deter it? We want to deter people from doing these things because whether they were white on white or black on black, Asian or LGBT, or because it killed an animal. The unfortunate part, back again, we're emotional creatures, and when you put it out there on the media and you let the media blow it up, then you see more school shootings. When they put it out there, you see more of that, and not the opposite. When you bring to light, you get more of it, not less. And being in PR, you know that. You don't get less of it, you get more of it. That's why they put it out there. Because they make
Thank you
right.
for media to create awareness.
Yeah.
Okay.
It
Bridget,
just doesn't have the same intended reality.
closing thoughts.
So
1 minute and go.
I have the same stance I did when I started, which is that yes,
Well, that's silly.
But there's a but.
Sorry.
But there is one thing that I will say y'all did kind of open my eyes to a little bit, which was when Dave asked me the question of, if someone, robs you and kills you versus, African American or lesbian or whatever it may be, I do believe in the death penalty. So to me, it is punishable by death. So the one thing that I would say has opened my eyes a little bit is the punishment, because you really can't punish more than the death penalty. So while yes, I do still believe hate crime should be labeled a hate crime, even though I don't even love the word label, but whatever. but I do still feel that it needs to factor in to the decision, even though the punishment may be the same.
Okay, Dave.
You skipped on.
No, she went.
No, I went. I
you
started
did?
it off.
Yeah, I'm working my way
Oh.
around.
I started it
How
I'm
off.
did you
sorry.
miss that?
Yeah.
It was good one.
You missed my brilliance.
I'm just going to say that it comes back to one of the points that we make all the time, almost every time I'm on the show. We go back to the founding documents, the Declaration of Independence, that talks about all people being created by God, and that there's intrinsic value that comes from that, and our rights come from that fact. And so, at the end of the day, regardless of what activity you subscribe to or how you choose to live your life, whether it's sinful or not sinful, or whether it's I agree with it or don't agree with it, or whatever skin tone you are, whatever gender you are, the fact of the matter is, if someone murders you, which means the unjustified taking of a human life, or commits any act of violence against you, that should be punished in and of itself. And the facts of the case will be revealed in the presentation of the case, which, to Donna's point, yes, you're right. We're having to rely on attorneys, Lord help us, to bring out those facts. But then again, any system of justice is never going to be perfect, because guess who's the ones implementing it? People, right? If you ever find, it's like Dr. Ed Young of Second Baptist Church right here in Houston, Texas says, if you ever find a perfect church, don't join it, because you'll mess it up, right? So it's the same thing with government. It's the same thing with any human entity. If you ever find something that's perfect, don't stay away from it, because you'll mess it up. It will never be perfect. And so with that regard, all we can do is hold to the highest ideals. And I cannot think of a better protection for everyone, whether it's regard to race, gender, whatever your behavior is, how you choose to lead your life. The bottom line is that our foundational law views you as a created being by God, and by that fact alone, you have rights, and therefore we are all equal under the law. It just does. There's nothing better than that.
Yeah. My closing thought is this: is that in everything that I do, everything I'm about, the show, everything, it's always pushing towards truth. It's always pushing towards equality. In that sense, to David's point, that the Constitution says we're all created equal. I believe that with all my heart. I believe that every human being was created by God and is therefore equal, and by that creative process they're due certain inalienable rights that governments are created to ensure. That's it. And so for me, any distinction where you say you were murdered and you're black, or you were murdered and you're gay, or whatever, is to start making distinctions of inequality. Is to start making distinctions that make you different than. And it's just the old separate but equal argument. Well, you're gay, but you're really still equal. But we're going to punish the guy more. But, it's all that stuff. It's like, are you dead or not, and what's the punishment? And let's equally apply it across the board. That's it. I want everything in our government to push towards that unbiased application of the law. And anything that doesn't happen that way, we all rally together and say, you're hanging out at the tree, this dude's dead, y'all lynched him, and I've got a massive freaking problem with this. We're going to riot in the streets, we're going to march, we're going to be pissed because y'all didn't actually apply the law justly to that dude's killers. That's what we should do. That's how we should approach it. But distinctions inside the law create bias and inequality. That's my wrap-up take.
And if you don't agree, you're a racist, sexist, homophobe who hates puppies and cats.
Yes, you forgot xenophobic.
Oh, and xenophobic too.
Yes, absolutely. So, there we go.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
So,
alpacas for president.
All those for Icelandic tacos.
Yes,
Call me tomorrow.
Icelandic tacos served after
We
the
want
show.
a seat at the table.
they're really good.
All right, on today's show.
Oh.
On today's show, we had a French Bordeaux that I still can't pronounce. Even less shot at
Let
it.
me
now that
try. I'm texting.
Yeah. Chateau d'Ay.
Chateau de Schmerschik. There.
Yeah, there we
Okay.
go. Schmarshik.
That was perfect.
It's obviously Polish.
That was perfect. Smart Texan French.
It's French Polish.
Chateau de Schmarshik. I can remember that and say it. That's really sad.
Yes.
All right. So Randall, how do you rate this French Bordeaux?
In the
So
essence
warm
of
in here.
time, I'll give it a 4.
All right.
Okay, it's a little hard to dance to, but I'm going to give it a 5.
A little hard to dance to.
It was a touch on the dry side for me, but I still liked it. It had a good flavor. 3.75.
Oh,
And I don't even usually like red wine, but gave it 4.
all right.
So I just want to say, as all of these folks have been
Oh,
wrong
he's right.
on everything else, they're also wrong on the wine. I just want to know. I'm just kidding. No, here's the thing. The wine, when I first tasted it, it was very unimpressive, and then it got more impressive as I drank it, and then when I drank the box wine after it, it even got more impressive. So it's a 4.5.
Ooh.
Wow.
It's
All right.
actually very good. I like the dry wines though. So.
Okay, yeah.
No, we appreciate it very much.
There we go,
Very
there we
nice,
go.
very nice wine.
That's the beauty of the show.
Plus,
So there we
it
go.
was
Yeah,
not
no.
homosexual, so it was never mind.
The wine.
Plus the grapes identified as
The
plums.
wine. The wine is in favor of alpacas, Icelandic tacos.
I even won Donna on that one. Cheers.
That is so funny. Oh my gosh.
She hates me, but she loves me. What can I say, you know? Like
Oh,
Randall.
my
He
gosh.
hates me and loves me too.
Well, thank you guys for tuning in. This is like, I think it may have been the record length of time of a show.
Yes. Well,
And it's like 107 degrees.
You, me, and Randall are on the same show. What do you think is going to happen?
Right. But it's an epic topic, and you guys had so many great comments.
yes, thank you for all your
Yes.
comments.
I'm honestly not looking forward to the comment feed tomorrow because it's going to take me forever to go through all the
Bridget and
comments.
Donna,
Yeah.
excellent
Thank you.
job. First time guest.
yes.
Very much
Yeah.
in the
in
Hey,
the
mix.
we were in it. We were in it.
Yeah,
So
and
welcoming, too.
embodied the purpose of the show.
Yes.
Honestly, kudos.
Yeah.
That's the most
Thank you.
clinkable moment
Yeah.
right there.
Yes, okay.
You embodied the
Hang
show.
on. No, we can't drink to empty glass.
I
You
can't
can
put
too.
a L in there.
Okay.
Look, Randall, I'm just going to give you a little sip. Here.
You
come
gotta
here.
have a little sip, Randall.
Yeah.
Hold on. Then we all clink.
Just
Okay.
a sip.
Come on, Joe,
And
hurry
just
up.
while- and while he's
There you go.
doing that, I just
There
need
you
to
go.
say that there's someone making dinner for me right now, and I'll be right there, honey.
Cheers!
Cheers.
We're out. See you next week,
Cheers.
Thursday on
Woo-hoo.
the Artist Edition of the show, 7 p.m. We're out.